ready to wrap up a long week in St. Joe. Soren Petro.
Right you are, Kay. Right you are. It is the program. Soren Petro with you here on a hotter Tuesday. The sun is out. It is a beautiful day from taking some photographs. If you want to get out and take some pictures here at Chiefs Training Camp, you better hurry up. There's some rumors that they might wrap up a little bit early today. So maybe in the next 10 or 15 minutes, they'll be wrapping things up. A sixth consecutive padded practice here on the practice fields in Missouri West for Andy Reid and his troops. They will take tomorrow off. They will travel Thursday. They will play Friday against the New Orleans Saints down in New Orleans. Saturday, they will be off again and then back at practice Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then they close it down, already coming to an end very soon, the training camp here in St. Joe, Missouri. So get up here and take advantage of it while you can, but they are shut down from now until Sunday. So if you're not real close, I mean like walking up listening to me on an old school Walkman, if not the 810 app, then you're probably not going to see it today. So you need to start looking at Sunday through Wednesday of next week. We're going to talk Chiefs football here in the program. Soren Petro with you. Doug Stewart, TJ Carpenter over awaiting the players as they come off the practice field. We'll be joined by Doug and TJ a little bit later on here in the program. Curtis Siebel, Craig Brennan running the show from back at the studios of Sports Radio 810 WHB. A lot of football coming your way today. Doug and TJ will be back with some of the sound. Hoping to talk to Niall Davis today, what I consider to be one of the major keys for this football team moving forward on the offensive side of the ball. Doug's going to try to talk to Niall Davis today. But we're also going to be joined shortly here by John Dorsey. 10:15 is our ETA. We're certainly not going to hold John Dorsey to that time, or the Chiefs to that time. It'll be in accordance with practice wrapping up. I can see him watching the field right now where 11 on 11 is going on. So when he gets done with practice, he's going to sit down and join us. So looking forward to talking to the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, John Dorsey. That's coming your way very soon. Also more football with Adam Teicher in the 1 o'clock hour, as we'll get Teicher's thoughts on camp to this point. As again, a little bit of a break as far as actually being out on the practice field coming to the players. But they're going through the poundings of the full padded practice. And Andy Reid's practice, probably not nearly as tough as they used to be because of the new rules. But he's got them in pads, and he's got them hitting yet again today. That can only be a good thing from where I stand. Royals baseball, we're going to talk about it here for a couple of minutes before we're joined by John Dorsey. We're going to talk about it with not Adam Teicher. We're going to talk about it with Jason Stark, our Major League Baseball insider. Jason traveling today, maybe a little bit late joining us. So I alert the seam heads. 12 noon, straight up noon, or moments thereafter is when Jason Stark usually joins us. That might spill on towards 12:30. Stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date with Jason Stark's traveling, but he is going to join us, he assures us, sometime in the 12 o'clock hour. So we'll talk Royals baseball as well as Biogenesis, Alex Rodriguez, and Dayton Moore's candidacy for general manager of the year. Let's go ahead and talk about it. With them playing this kind of baseball, his name is going to get thrown around as executive of the year. Think about it, from outhouse to penthouse. Has anybody gone quicker than Dayton Moore? He's not there yet, but he's in an elevator riding up. There's certainly many a naysayer who bristle at that thought, but make no mistake about it, the Royals play good baseball. The Royals make their way to the upper 80s, and his name is going to be talked about very strongly as a candidate for executive of the year. We will talk about that with Jason Stark a little bit later on. Royals win last night 13-0, an absolute destruction of the Minnesota Twins. Great game all around. Great game for the future of the Kansas City Royals. For those that are always concerned that winning more games this year doesn't matter for the Royals, because if you're not going to win the World Series this year, you might as well win 0 or win 48, whatever it takes to get the number 1 overall pick, and just keep stocking your system so that then you can wave your wand magically on the year that you are actually ready to go out and win the World Series. Last night, I think a great performance for the Royals fans that want the Royals to win now, want the Royals to go to the playoffs now, want the Royals to be as good as they can be now, but also for the Royals fans that think this year is a lost cause and are more focused on the future of the Royals. By the way, hashtag sarcasm there. I'm hoping you're picking it up because I'm laying it on pretty thick. But last night, Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer, the two young bats, the two young corner infielders that are expected to deliver power, to deliver production, they both get it done. 3 for 5 with a couple of runs, a career-high 5 RBIs, and his 12th home run for Eric Hosmer. Mike Moustakas, a 4-hit night, 4 for 5 with a run and 2 RBI. He continues to look like he is getting back to being the player that he has looked like at times last year, and that the Royals certainly desperately need him to be. So good news on that front. Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer, they have to hit. The Royals are, frankly, to use a poker term, all in on Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas. They, at this point, can't afford to trade them because they need so much more offense back that they would be gutting the team now, and don't figure to get a better player back offensively. They have to stay the course with them, and particularly when you trade away Will Myers. I mean, these guys have to hit. Last night they did, and they need to have a lot more nights like this where they do put production on the board. And then the other side of the equation is the pitching. As Jeremy Guthrie goes the distance, gets his second career shutout, leads the Royals with 12 wins, achieves a career high in wins. And I think this is important for this year, clearly, but also for the near future of the Royals, because he signed for 2 more years. And I thought a great discussion when I was driving over here from the Stony Creek Inn, tip of the cap to the folks over at the Stony Creek Inn. When I was driving over from the Stony Creek Inn listening to the Border Patrol, and I thought Nate and Steven had some great points in talking about the future of Ervin Santana, and that, hey, Jeremy Guthrie found a ballpark that he really could pitch well in. I think you saw it last night. It fit his style. It certainly helped in the effort to re-sign Jeremy Guthrie. Could that help in an effort to re-sign Ervin Santana? And a lot of optimism. I forget who the guest was. But a lot of optimism as far as being able to get Ervin Santana signed. So look, I think that's part of the other equation. If you want to re-sign Ervin Santana, and this is why the winning baseball games goes beyond just winning enough to get to the playoffs. There is value in winning in baseball. Because if you want to re-sign Ervin Santana and you're going to just gut the team, he's not going to re-sign. And will the Royals re-sign Ervin Santana? I give it a 30% chance, which is 29.9% more than I would have given him 3 years ago. All right, but I'll give it a 30% chance, largely bolstered by the fact that they were able to get Jeremy Guthrie signed. But if you don't win games, why would you sign on as a veteran player? So if you've got the money, and the Royals should, if they can manage their payroll, if they get any kind of cash back from David Glass to put into this payroll, but if they can manage their payroll, they should be able to come in around where they are payroll-wise this year. They're going to show marked improvement on attendance from 2 years ago. Last year is going to be kind of tricky because all the extra tickets that were sold because of the All-Star game. But season ticket sales should skyrocket for next year. And if you have the promise of, if you have the history of playing better baseball and the more ticket sales that are there, and hopefully the Royals are out trying to re-sign up any season ticket holders they lost right now, riding the wave of positivity. If you know you're going to have more money, then perhaps you can stretch the payroll and you can get Ervin Santana signed. It's important to be a winning team to be able to sell to somebody that next year you can win. And as much as prospect hounds and stat nerds like me or Randy may want to believe that, hey, look at all this young talent we've got in the system, you should sign here because we're going to be really good in the future, that is not how big league ball players look at it. So if you want to re-sign your own, or you want to sign somebody from another team, you've got to show that we can win baseball games. And if the Royals can do that this year, they've got a better chance to sign Ervin Santana or some other pitcher that might be on the market, or some other hitter that might be on the market. There is value in winning baseball games. Winning matters. It matters every single day. There is no one who's ever been a great success that said, let's go out, let's tank, let's lose, let's suck, let's try to lose ball games, and suddenly, mystically found the formula for how to win. Trust me, the Kansas City Chiefs aren't sitting with their thumbs in their rear end and holding on to all their cap room as they had for 4 years. They have initially, in year one under John Dorsey, spent right up to the cap. Time will tell as to whether or not that ends up being a positive for the Kansas City Chiefs, but they have spent it all. They're trying to win football games right now. They're not hoarding it all back, waiting for the quarterback fairy to wave some fairy dust over them and suddenly grow the next coming of Peyton Manning. They went out, they acquired quarterbacks, multiple quarterbacks, 3 different quarterbacks to put into this system, and they put talent on the field in an effort to win today. Winning is not something that you flip a switch on. Winning is something you do every single day. You have to prepare to win. You have to work to win. It doesn't just happen when you decide that, oh, okay, 2 years from now, we're going to go do it. You have to start winning from day one. It's a good thing. The Royals are winning. They're cutting their games back in the wild card. They're very much a part of the playoff race. And I'm going to tell you that Dayton Moore, if they continue to play this kind of baseball, no, not just 12 out of 13, but winning baseball, Dayton Moore's name will be talked about when it comes to Executive of the Year. Still out on the practice field. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll open up the phone lines, 913-3-810-810. Huge game for the Royals last night. Jeremy Guthrie's second career shutout. Second shutout of the season. Fourth of his career for Jeremy Guthrie. We will take a break, come back, expecting to be joined by John Dorsey, the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Those other two guys ahead of him pretty good too.
Yeah, it's
nice.
Good camp. It's nice to see that. You like the quarterback position, then overall you're seeing what you wanted to see.
I do. I mean, the last 4 days, both of those guys have been competing. Made great throws, great decisions. You can start to see now they'll start to actually react, because it's all in their head. It's slowing down for them, and they're making the proper decisions. They're coming to the second and the third. The defense that they're going against, it's so complicated. It's a great learning tool for the quarterbacks because they're seeing things come from everywhere, and I think that's a really great learning tool to use.
Yeah. We're talking to John Dorsey, general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs, joins us here in the program. My final four quickies for you. You ready?
Yep.
A lot of people need some help. You are a general manager. You are the man, as we just heard.
No, you're the man.
No, I'm not the man. Number one pick in fantasy football drafts is who?
I don't talk about stuff like that.
You don't?
No.
Come on, give some help.
It's in my contract. I don't talk about. That's like you don't talk about stuff like that.
Fantasy football?
I can't talk about.
How can you not talk about it? It's fantasy.
Well, all of a sudden you guys are going to start putting wagers on it, and then in my contract it says I can't do stuff like that.
So like if you said, hey, Jamal Charles
Nope.
should be the number one pick.
Nope.
No, can't do that?
Nope.
Can't just see. I expect you to go political and take the Chiefs.
No, I'm a man of honor. I can't do that.
You can't do it. All right. That's good. Should college players be paid? Yeah. No, I'm kidding. Yes. Should they be paid?
Yes.
Yes. I like that. See, no, there's no politics to that. That's just bold. I like that very much. All right. Who's in charge of the music choices out here for crowd noise? There's some Bob Seger, some Bon Jovi. Is that Andy Reid's over here in his
playlist?
playlist?
Go up to the locker room right there because it's a mix. Sometimes it's the offensive line, the defense. You can tell the distinct difference.
So that's a player's choice out there?
You can tell the distinct difference between the DBs and like the linebackers.
Yes.
Okay.
And then what their musical choices are. Yeah.
But actually, when Charlie Weiss was here, all of a
Right.
sudden. Bruce Springsteen was on, and all of a sudden Bon Jovi was on there. And I look over at Charlie, and he's singing the words to Bon Jovi. I'm like, oh,
Jersey guy.
Jersey
They
guy.
spent a lot of time on the Jersey Shore. He did. Yeah, I read his book. So that was a player's choice out there for that.
It's a little bit of both.
I figured that was Andy Reid's iPod
It
plugged
could
into a
be.
little thing.
It could be. If you find my iPod, let me know.
Okay. Let me know when it's
definitely
going.
not mine.
Okay. We're gonna see some big bands, some Sinatra.
No, it might be a little more country.
Oh, a little more country.
A little
Okay.
more country.
All right. Good to know. I know you would totally take the fifth and pass on predicting the Chiefs record for this year, so I'm not even going to ask it to you. But I will ask you what KU will do. You had Charlie Weiss up here. Your wife went to KU. What are you expecting out of the KU football team this year?
I'll take the fifth.
You can't take the fifth on that.
I'm in the state of Missouri, and you're asking me a KU question.
Well,
I'm
because
taking the fifth.
You've already mentioned Charlie Weiss.
Yes.
Right?
Coach Snyder is one of the finest coaches in college football. And then the guy at Columbia, Missouri, he's a pretty good coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I'm taking the fifth.
All right. Then since you're not going to answer that one, I'll ask you another one. Did you look for a bike on your first day to ride down to the practice
I brought
field?
my bike.
You brought your bike.
I got a beach cruiser.
See, do you miss that's one of the great traditions in all of football is the kids giving their bikes to the Packers players and they ride it down. Did it feel a little, where is that?
Nope, not at all.
No?
You know what? I am so at peace right here. I mean, this is wonderful. It really is.
It's a good time. You haven't lost.
The only good thing is, besides the field, is what nice weather.
You've been extraordinarily lucky.
I've
on the
heard
weather.
all these stories about 100 degrees. I'm still wearing a sweatshirt out here. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's not sweatshirt weather. It's nice of you to do that. It's not sweatshirt weather, but it's still not that bad. I'm going to tell you, first time here, I was sunk about 4 inches deep into mud because it would pour rain every night and then be 105. They just had the worst luck on weather the first year. And it's been really hot until this year.
And I thought Andy, he had a great plan to go. He was going to do practices in the morning, and then what he was going to do is allow the guys to regenerate their bodies. He was going to do a walkthrough, which he still does, in the indoor complex to give your body a chance. And we heard all about the heat. So that was a great plan, but, you know,
it hasn't come to fruition. Mike DeVito said he liked the morning workouts. I can't. They used to do afternoon workouts. For the life of me, I can't figure out what the purpose is of that. I thought it was because maybe you couldn't turn the video around fast enough. But
no, you can.
But DeVito said, "Hey, it's ready. I can walk up right now. It's ready to go." So I don't get it, but hey, it looks good from here. So it always looks good when you're just getting started. Always good to talk to you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, John. Look forward to hopefully getting a chance to talk to you a lot in the future.
We'll see you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. John Dorsey, GM of the Kansas City Chiefs. You're in the program live in St. Joe.
Still guarded. There's still some stuff kept close to the vest, and how he goes about things, not wanting to get anywhere near, making a prediction on KU. I thought that was surprising. I thought, to me, there's an easy out there. You just go 12-0. And nobody takes you serious, and then you've done the Kansas people are happy because you didn't pick a bad number, but didn't want to discuss
the money on the line, how much money you want to put on the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the interesting things. Is that was one where I think he felt like maybe we're going down a road to a trade secret. That if he says, well, yeah, you can only spend so much money on your offensive line, or we basically have a salary cap for each position and we're not going to go over it or anything. Other teams will get that information, know it, and will make offers in free agency. That's one of the big things that teams do in free agency. It's why you see that flurry right away, is because teams assess what other teams' needs are. They say, well, so-and-so needs a corner, so if we're going after Dante Robinson, they're going to be coming too, so we got to be ready for that. And then they assess where they are cap-wise. Hey, can I put something together in this deal, whether it's a big second-year payment or a big signing bonus or whatever it is, to where, hey, they can't match that cap-wise. So I can give the better deal. Let's do it right now before the team has a chance to adjust. So that's where information like that, I see it, where he'd be coming from. Information like that could be seen as, hey, somebody could read that and use that against us. And I think it's also of note, and I give the guy credit for being smart enough to see that, because I think it also could be used. Well, I'll tell you how I would use it is, can they go ahead, with Eric Fisher and Brandon Albert? They've got to turn around and start signing some of the interior guys here before long. John Asamoah is going to be up on free agency before long, and has he kind of cornered himself, or has he showed everybody out there in case there were any kind of trade talks? Look, I'm not going to re-sign Asamoah because I got too much money in my tackles right now. We did a long-term deal with Albert. Or does it make it clear that we're not going to go for a long-term deal with Albert because of where the salary is? The one thing that jumps out at me is they're right up around the cap, and Dwayne Bowe's going to get a lot more expensive next year. That money's going to have to come from somewhere. Where is that money going to come? I think part of it would be Tyson Jackson. I think there's some cuts that you can figure on right now. Tyson Jackson, Brandon Albert, those are two big contracts. One of those two, I feel pretty confident, isn't going to be here. And because you've got some money going towards Dwayne Bowe, then after that, you're going to have to look at it, whether it's Alex Smith or somebody else paying for a quarterback. And frankly, $8 million is below market value for a starting quarterback. So you're going to have to be holding back some money for that position to take a jump to the at least 10, if not 12, 14, 15. It's either going to be Alex Smith getting the money. So, where he talks about the looking 2 and 3 years down the road, and where I asked him about the offensive line, because I think that is of note. I do believe, to be successful in the NFL, the offensive line is a place where you can be good, and even very good. I don't know that you can be great, but you can be good or very good, and not spend a ton of money. And that's why I think if Fisher can play the left side, and they walk on Brandon Albert, now they got to find another tackle. And Stevenson being down right now is hurting his chances of maybe being the starting right tackle on this team next year. But if they can find another tackle, then they have a chance. If they're comfortable with their guard to guard, they have a chance to have a very cost-efficient offensive line if it's good. Now you got to go ahead and commit to $10 million, plus under the cap for Brandon Albert, while you're 4, 5, 6 over there on the right side. Then you got to pay Asamoah. Then all of a sudden that offensive line starts to get expensive, and it better be dominant, like the Chiefs' offensive line was a number of years ago. So that's all the riddle that he got to work with and got to deal with. But always like talking to John Dorsey. I think he's an impressive guy, and I think he clearly is an intelligent guy but also a guy that you'd like to, sit down and hang out with. I think he's a genuine guy, and I don't think there's clearly not a spirit of mistrust. He walked away, and during the break, he's like, "You made me miss that workout." They didn't even wait for me. I'm like, I don't know if I did or didn't. I don't know if but he had a smile on his face and was laughing as he headed off, and I would believe that if he said, "All right, let's do it again," because now I'm here to watch it, the guy's going to do it again. But just I think that is, you start from the top down. At the general manager position, at the head coach position, I think you've got a couple of guys that if their personality is going to permeate through the team, just makes for a healthier environment.
His success or failure here is clearly going to be determined by the wins and losses, and he, again, reiterated that in his discussion with you. But it is refreshing the different personality style. For the 4 years that Scott Pioli was here, it seemed like every single word he said was designed not to deceive, but was designed, had a purpose to it, had a political purpose to it. And I just don't get that with John Dorsey. Not that he's just going to say anything and be off the wall and not consider what he says, but there's less of that. Everything I say is designed for an effect that you got with Pioli. It's refreshing to me as a fan.
Do you think the other thing that jumped out at me where he was just on the point was that you could see his eyes kind of light up when he talked about
30.
But he talked about that's one thing. I think Scott Pioli would say there are things he's got to work on, but I don't think he would have been that. I don't think.
10 seconds.
He's not a bad guy to hang around with, but the environment. So that's not to say that. WHB TV. Go to the program button, click on it, drops down, click on 810 WHB TV. The John Dorsey interview will be up there later. We had it on live. We'll have it up there later. If you missed it, you can catch it on the podcast there at 810WHB.com here in a little bit, or catch it with the video a little bit later on at the 810 WHB TV. Our thanks again to the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs. Very generous with his time this morning, talking some Chiefs football here in the program. We'll talk some more football. Doug Stewart, TJ Carpenter getting back from talking to the players. We'll hear from a couple of the guys here shortly. We'll talk some baseball with you. More baseball to come with Jason Stark in the noon hour. More football to come with Adam Teicher in the 1 o'clock hour. 913-810-810. Another nugget I want to put out there, ESPN.com. I'm not sure where it was. I went there via some other link. I'm sure it's on their college basketball page. Bill Self, eventual NBA move possible. I will calm the nerves of any Kansas fan who, frankly, will just ignore that and say it'll never happen, which is what I would do if he was my coach. Bury your head in the sand and assume there's no way he would ever leave the greatest place on earth. That's a little bit of sensationalization out of the headline there, but Bill Self now being inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Says Self has accomplished much in 10 years at Kansas, but those credentials have apparently fallen short thus far of what top NBA executives are looking for in their quest for the up-and-coming coach du jour. Quote, "It hasn't really tempted me because I haven't had that many people talk to me about it," Self said Monday night, speaking to the Oklahoman during ceremonies in which he was inducted into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. But at some point in time, sure, I think it would. Now, to put those two quotes together, hasn't really tempted me because I haven't had that many people talk to me about it. But at some point in time, sure, I think it would. It would be great to be able to match wits with the best athletes in the world, but I'm certainly happy where I'm at. He goes on to say, I'm not saying I never would, Self said, of coaching in the NBA, but I'm locked in. The biggest thing is you will never be happy as a coach unless you know you can attract good players. Self said, I'm fortunate to coach at a place where the product is so good and we're always going to get, at least I hope so, some pretty good players. I love it at Kansas, and they love basketball there. I've been very fortunate to coach at such a tradition-rich place. I hear that. I mean, it says to me what it's always said. But at some point, sure, I think it would, as far as the NBA interesting him. At some point. Is there some magical accomplishment? Is there something that's there? Or is Bill Self, who is, I think, incredibly intelligent, just smart enough to understand that in a contract negotiation, any tool you can use is an important one. So let's leave that door open always, so that there's always a sense of urgency when it comes to getting a contract done. Because how long of an extension do you think he got in 08? When I'm thinking 4, 5, 6, I mean, I don't remember what the details of the deal were, but maybe it's rolling around to contract time and this is a well-placed nugget, or maybe no. He does think, hey, before it's all said and done, I'm going to give the NBA a go. I don't know, but it certainly, I don't think it says, hey, I'm gone, I'm out of here. He goes out of his way to talk about how happy he is at Kansas, so I don't think he's leaving anytime soon, but it certainly is not, no, I'd never coach in the NBA. Kansas is my final job. He has taken it upon himself to say that he would have interest in the NBA. There's no way to look at it any other way. Is there, Curtis?
No. I don't think so. I think that's always been the one area that I can't think Kansas fans have always been deathly afraid of, and I think there's probably a reason for them to still be that way.
I don't think this is new news. I think this is the same story it's always been with Bill Self, but I think the fact that he reiterates it, the fact that he's on the record saying it that way, I think is of note. I put it down in the of note category. Not that he's on his way out, but I think you continue to wonder, well, if the Spurs job opened up, well, if Oklahoma City came calling, or if it was the Lakers or the Celtics or, you know, the Knicks, whoever you consider to be the Bulls, maybe, whoever you consider to be the glamour franchises. The one thing that I take away from that, though, that I think speaks to me as a positive for Kansas, he makes it clear that you want to be at a spot where you can coach good players. And he knows he's got that at Kansas. Kansas is a place that will help attract talent. I don't think he's going to go take some rebuilding job. He's not going to take the Tim Floyd Bulls job where he goes and takes over a team that's blowing it up and starting over. Taking over with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant, maybe there'd be some interest. But I think the one thing you can kind of rule out is any kind of start over job. I don't see him doing that. I think it's going to have to be a team that's got some players that can win right now. I don't think there's a lot of interest in building a franchise. So that's what I take away from it. I thought it was important to mention. 913-810-810.
For the record, his previous contract was set to expire in June of 2018 before they re-upped last year.
Oh, they did re-up last year?
I remember. Through the 21-22 season. Paying him $3.85 million, a chance to increase about $500,000 per year.
Well, the one other note that I will point in here towards this, and that is actually, it even says that right here and there. I don't know why I was just focused on his quotes, but that he, through 21-22, included a raise to $3.86 million. What the deal doesn't include, however, was a buyout penalty clause, meaning he is free to take an NBA job without the threat of financial repercussions. So if he wants to go to the NBA, he can go. There's no buyout. So he's got a great deal, not going anywhere in college basketball, but the NBA is there, and he could walk at any moment. Walk away from a great situation with a lot of money. I don't see it happening, but I think it's of note when he's on the record being quoted by the Oklahoman down there after last night.
But, you know, guys who are achievers like Self, they're obsessed with the next challenge. And, I mean, the guy has won. He's been to Final Fours. He's won a national championship. Somewhere in his mind, there would have to be the thought, I wonder if I could do this in the NBA. I wonder if I could win an NBA championship. And he's in a spot where he could pick maybe the spot he'd want to do it, and it'd have to be tempting to him.
I think that's true of everybody. You know, hey, what would it be like? But I think you also can, you know, I'll just use my own personal work life. You know, I think particularly when you're young, you think of whatever the brightest lights are, or whatever, you know, whatever the rest of the world says is the most important thing for you to accomplish. Then you get into your life and your family and your surroundings and your friend, and your friends, proximity to family, and you realize, hey, this is good. I may not ever be able to go do something. Like, you might not ever get to call a Super Bowl, but I also don't have to raise my kids in New York City in a concrete jungle. I can raise them here in Kansas City, where I've got a great home life, family and friends all around, parks, playgrounds, good schools. Hey, this is more important. And I think if you're a Kansas fan, that's where you hope Bill Self is at. And I think also his work life is pretty good. I mean, he's as close to being. The only thing is the NBA versus college. But who's the greatest basketball coach in the history? What's the consensus of who the greatest basketball coach is that's ever lived?
Like people say, I'm kind of going through college. Red Auerbach, I don't know, Pat Riley.
That's funny because I would have said John Wooden.
That's who I first thought, but I was like, he's not going for Wooden. He's going for somewhere. I was trying to figure out where you were going instead of just answering honestly. Well, Wooden's probably considered the best. His name's on the award.
I mean, I think Coach K is up there. And I think one of the things that Bill Self might want to do is to coach the Olympic team. That's if I were a Kansas fan, I'd like it if Coach K is going to do it again. But if he were to say I'm walking away, I'd hope that Bill Self could coach that Olympic team. I'd be a little bit worried. Oh boy, does he like coaching these pros? But I would think that might satisfy his urge to coach the very best. There, he doesn't have to go acquire the talent. He can just X and O it with the best players in the world. That might be something that would satisfy him completely.
If you love someone, let them go and see if they come back, and that'd be the case there, I think.
I mean, I think that might allow him to scratch that itch.
Yep.
Say, okay, I don't need to go, because how often are you gonna? I really don't think he'll ever coach in the NBA, but I think it's a threat. I don't think he'll ever coach in the NBA because I think he's gotten to the point where, I think when he got to Kansas, he may have thought 3 years from now, I'll take that NBA check, I'll take that 5-year, $25 million deal to go to the NBA. I think he may have thought that way. But I think the better Kansas makes his life, the better his professional life is, and personal life perhaps, I don't know. But his professional life is, the more contingencies you put on what kind of job it would take for the NBA. Like 2 years in at Kansas, any NBA job, I'll take it. I'll take the check. I can always get another college job. But when you've got such a sweet thing going at Kansas, I think it becomes, I'm not rebuilding. I'm not working for a loudmouth owner. I want to pick the general manager. The team had to have been at least a 35-win team last year. All of a sudden, you've narrowed it down to where there are only like 2 jobs, and they're not open, and likely not to be open on a regular basis. And not only not only would they have to be open, but the team would have to have interest in you with an opening. I think your criteria becomes so small that you basically close the door without having to admit to yourself that you've closed that door.
And my final point on this, on him discussing the NBA, I couldn't tell from the story if he just brought it up. I'm sure it was a direct question. Hey, Coach, is an NBA move possible? And then he responded, or did I think there is some distinction.
It was prompted by the reporter.
Yeah. So the fact that he brought it up wasn't.
Hey, I want to get this off my chest. The NBA is a possibility. I definitely think he was, and you know how accommodating Bill Self is. He's not going to tell somebody, look, I'm not even going to talk about that.
Right.
And he gives you an honest answer. I think he's an honest guy. Yeah. But I also get the feeling that there's probably at this point with the success he's had, such a specific type of job it'd have to be that the likelihood of that kind of job opening up doesn't seem very likely. But, we've cited a couple of places that you keep your eye on if you're a Kansas fan. We'll take a break. We'll come back, talk some more about the Royals. We're going to hear from some of the Chiefs players coming off the practice field here in St. Joe. Our camp coverage always brought to you by the fine folks at Randy Reed Chevrolet, Sonic, and the Low T Center.
Dorsey, I could see the smile on his face about how Tyler Bray throws the football. There's no doubt that is a it's a maybe $100 million's overstating it, but it's a very expensive arm. Can the head and the feet and the heart and the mind and all of that go together with it? That'll be the question for the Chiefs as they move forward. But Dorsey certainly proud of bringing in a talented quarterback, as he should be, a guy with a lot of skills. I still come back and I asked him, how's that guy get through that many rounds? Oh, it happens. Wasn't going to dive into it. There's still got to have some questions about either what's in the chest or what's in the head. one or the other. Royals win last night, 13-0 over the Minnesota Twins. 3 straight, 12 of 13 now. Biggest win since 2007. Mike Moustakas 3 for 5. Mike Moustakas 4 for 5 with a run and 2 RBIs. Eric Hosmer 3 for 5 with home run number 12, 5 RBIs, and Jeremy Guthrie throws a tremendous game. Look, is last night the best tribute you can have towards the general manager of this team, a guy that he got for Jonathan Sanchez, then re-signed against what was the open field, gets him into the mix. He throws a shutout, and then his number 2 and number 3 overall picks contributed collectively with a 7 of 10, 3 runs, 7 RBI home run night.
It's pretty hard to beat that. Pretty hard to beat that.
You know, at some point, aren't even the naysayers going to have to give some credit to Dayton Moore? There's still a lot of baseball to be played. They can still fall flat on their face, end up 4 or 5 games under 500. So again, we mentioned it over and over again. It's one of the reasons why we try to be proactive and set the bar. What are our expectations? Because too often I hear in talk radio and in the media in general, you just say, oh, it should be a good year. Okay, what's a good year? And if you don't put any kind of parameters on what a good year is, if by the end of the year you've decided you don't like the guy and you want him to be fired, you don't really have any reasons, but you can just go, I didn't have a good year. What do you mean? They won 84 games. That's not a good year as a playoff year. Okay, well, state playoffs. I mean, I disagree with Randy Gisarelli saying for the Will Myers deal to be a success, they have to make the playoffs. I disagree with it, but I certainly respect him in advance being proactive and saying, okay, here's the bar they've got to achieve for me to say, hey, this was a good deal. So we talked about an above 500 year, and we talked about progress from the first rounders. And I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this job for quite a while, and I don't know that I can remember anybody being penthouse to the outhouse. I mean, I remember sitting out at the golf tournament out at Lionsgate after they just lost 5 in a row and we were headed into the All-Star break, or maybe they only lost 3 in a row. I think they maybe even 2. Or where were they? Where would they have been at that point? We're sitting there on a Friday. No, they're coming out of the All-Star break. It's coming out of the All-Star break when we were at the Midwest Classic, and they had dropped 5 in a row to go into the All-Star break, and they hadn't played a game yet. And Dayton Moore was all but fired, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were heading into that series against the Tigers and thought, wow, this is not where you want to start. You're at home, but you got the top team in your division, and we're just thinking, if 5 becomes 8, 8 straight, well, what do you do? When do you move? And you're right. I don't remember a 3-week period like this before.
I mean, can you? I mean, he was, and part of it's the timing and circumstance. He's not in year 1 as a general manager. It's a critical year for him in his front office. So that you need a unique situation like that. But I mean, a guy that I'll be honest with you, I don't know that there was anybody left in town. He was virtually dead man walking. I remember talking to Joel the Monday before, and Joel's always optimistic and is never going to be a guy. He covers the guys on a daily basis, so he's not going to hammer away at a guy. But even he seemed kind of down and like, yeah, this is a problem, and yeah, that's a problem. And now here we sit. And they're spitting distance away from the wild card. I don't ever remember a turnaround like that.
No, because we were thinking by the next time we talk to Joel, there might be 9 under, and the only question would be, well, who will be the general manager next year? And who will be the manager next year? And they turned it around on its head. And
I'd already started to look through, okay, who are potential GM candidates. I don't really like talking about this because I don't know who's going to be available, who would take the job, who's really responsible for what and what organization. I think it's a tough thing to figure out who are great general manager candidates other than the guys who have done it before. But I'd already started to kind of peek at, okay, who are the chief lieutenants at a lot of places that seem to do things the right way. And now here we sit, they're 3.5 games out of the wild card.
And here's another thing, that not only have they won, have they clearly blunted that and turned it around. Even while they were winning for a while, there was this notion of the fan base. I always liken it to the Randy Quaid character in Major League. Oh, they're going to blow it in the end. They'd win a series. Yeah, wait till they get swept this week. And there was that pessimism. They've even put a giant dent in that, where to me, the majority of the fan base now, they're expecting to go out and win now. And that's, I would have never thought you could turn that around as much as they have in a 3-week span.
And I want to correct, they're 4 back in the wild card. I was thinking when I did this last night, the Rangers and Angels were tied, and the Rangers, of course, went on to win that game. So the Rangers.
I think they're 2 back in the loss column, right?
From the 2 back in the loss column.
Yeah.
They've played 113 games down in Texas. Royals have played 109, so they've got 4 games to make up on them. So. That is one of the things if they can win those games. We know one of those makeup games is the Tigers, and just the schedule is already backloaded for them with an extra game or 2. But look, it's exciting times, man. And I'm going to tell you, who is the general manager of the year? Who's the executive of the year in the American League? Do they do an AL and NL on that, or is it only one?
I think it's just one.
What's his name with the Pirates is going to win it?
Probably. They're 23 games over 500, so I don't know where's. I can't even think his name right now.
Neil Huntington.
Yeah, Neil Huntington. I just saw it. I think he's probably the front runner.
I mean, it's not going to be Boston, even though they had a bad year last year with the money they've got wrapped up in that payroll. It's not going to be Boston. Tampa, Baltimore, I don't know. They were there last year.
Yeah. And Detroit was in the World Series last year. Oakland's there again.
I mean, they were there last
maybe Cleveland.
Maybe. I would say Cleveland, and I think you got to give it to Huntington down in Pittsburgh right now. It's his award. But Dayton Moore is going to get mentioned.
Yep.
The better they play, the longer they play well, he's going to get mentioned. 913-810-810. We'll take a break. TJ Carpenter joins us here from Tyler Bray, maybe singing a new tune. Turns out that NFL might be kind of fast. We'll hear from Tyler Bray. It's coming up next here in the program, live at Chiefs Training Camp here in St. Joe Mo. A little bit different than it does some of the other quarterbacks. TJ Carpenter joins us here in the program. Like a true SEC fan, he takes credit for all SEC teams. Takes pride in all.
The whole conference.
I am impressed with the conference pride. That is an impressive thing from you SEC folks. But Tyler Bray, we've talked about it. You've discussed how he makes throws. His eyes kind of lit up. John Dorsey kind of had this little smile when I started talking about how he throws the ball. You had a chance to talk to him again after practice today. I mentioned that yesterday after practice he was throwing the ball around with Niall Davis. We'll get to what he does after practice here in a minute, but made a big splash when he said, it really ain't different. It ain't different than the SEC. Maybe backtracked a little?
When I heard it first, I was there, I was getting the audio, and he said it, and I just cringed, and then they wrapped things up.
Right.
I said, that's not going to end well for him.
Yeah.
That is not a wise statement. He has since backed off that, and he is talking a lot more since he has started looking better out at practice than he did when he first got here. You saw some of the physical tools, but he really is starting to hit targets well now. And I think sometimes when you say somebody's got a big arm right off the bat, you also couple that with perhaps they're not the most accurate. And that's not always necessarily the case. With Tyler Bray, he's got a strong arm, but he's also really accurate. I don't think people realize just how well he could place the ball at times. And he did acknowledge that.
Did he mug an old lady? Did he take the governor's cat and run over it? What I'm even more intrigued on how this kind of talent just gets passed over in a draft. You called your network of sources out there. Did you find anything?
To be honest with you, I was talking with Adam Teicher about that. We were watching practice today, and I told Adam, I said, how did this guy not get drafted? I've spoken with everybody I know who had any connection to Tyler Bray, who covered him. I've talked with a couple people who coached him at Tennessee. They're all kind of dumbfounded by it. And then Teicher said, there's no way you watch this guy play how he didn't get drafted. How did this guy not get drafted? There's no way. Somebody like that, usually you can tell with the undrafted free agents, there's a reason why.
Right.
With Tyler Bray out of practice, you can't really tell with him why he got passed over by so many teams. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's really fair to speculate on personal things like what he's done, because it's not fair to him. Just judge him off of his play, which is what I've tried to do out here. Now, he said the stupid thing that he said, but he's backed off of that.
I will take a little bit of issue there. It is of note because if the guy has success, you want. What I think it is he had the biggest arm and he's not very coachable, and he doesn't pay attention in film room. I'm thinking that we've heard he did some college kid type things. I'm not excusing it, but we've heard about the throwing stuff off the
balcony.
Yeah, I don't put that on a level of don't draft. I put that on, okay, first round talent, let's take him in the third. Mm-hmm. Okay, first round talent, had fifth round production, let's take him in the fifth. Okay, so but not drafted. I think it's of note because if he would ever take over this team and have success, do you worry about him reverting back to whatever was a negative behavior? I think it's got to be his X's and O's aren't so sweet.
Well, I mean that's kind of why I used the phrase a $10 arm and a 10-cent brain when talking about Tyler Bray early on at camp. But so far, now you start talking about Tyler Bray, and I asked him today the improvements he's made with the speed of the game, what's caused the most problems for him, and he really said that there is one thing in particular that has really changed the way that he's been able to produce out of your practice.
Yeah, when you actually know what's going on, you play a lot faster. At the beginning, I was playing real slow, kind of still trying to figure out what was going on, and head was spinning a little bit. Now, starting to get in, starting to play a little faster.
Was it the information that they were throwing at you? Was it the playbook, or was it all of it, that the speed of the game, all of that stuff?
It was kind of a all-combined thing. I mean, you go from college and not a big playbook to now it's huge. You kind of have to learn a lot more and have to kind of focus a lot more than you did in college.
That does really reinforce what you were saying about the X's and O's, because if he is having trouble with that, and that was the reason why he wasn't necessarily making the plays he is now out of practice, but he has learned it, tells me that maybe he's not the smartest guy, but if he's changed his attitude and he's working hard and trying to get the playbook down and he's putting in the extra hours to do that, it's a good sign. I don't know how much it will translate into a game yet.
He strikes me as a guy who's always been good enough physically. By the way, I like how you stood up. You joining me in the standing?
Yeah.
He strikes me as a guy who's always been, look, in grade school, he could whip the ball around. You're the guy. Junior high, high school, there's nobody else. You throw the ball. No one else can do it. There's only a handful of plays we run. You're there. Got him recruited. Got him a big-time scholarship. Got him to big-time SEC school. He's the starter. He can throw it. The playbook's not that big. Hey, I don't really need to know it that well. I can see a guy, and I can throw it into a window pass, whether I have the right read or not. I've got the arm strength to do it. So here his eyes are going to be opened. But he couldn't explain it. The coaches have been through it enough to know that, okay, he doesn't really understand the concepts of what are going on in his own offense. He ain't never going to understand ours. I don't care how hard you can throw it. Even Brett Favre had his problems. So if he isn't going to be open to some coaching and figuring some things out, we're going to have some problems. Then you get here, now the motivation is, okay, I got to learn this stuff because I want to be the starter.
Yeah.
The reason it's important to know is because is just getting to be the starter good enough? Because Aaron Rodgers isn't done just being the starter. Peyton Manning isn't done just being the starter. Is it just good enough to win 10 games? Is it just good enough to get the contract? The truly great go beyond and continue to work. And is this a guy that light will turn on? Will he just work enough to get to wherever he's comfortable, which was being the starter in high school, getting the scholarship to Tennessee, being the starter, getting into the league? That's why I think it's an important question.
There are certain guys who they have the athletic prerequisites to be in the NFL, and I think if you have to have those, and he clearly has those. As you'd mentioned, the extra mile guys, the guys who truly are great, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. We don't talk about their arm strength. I mean, they all have strong arms. We don't talk about their accuracy, but they're all pretty accurate. We talk about their mental approach to the game, how hard they work, how well they interact with their teammates, the kinds of leaders they are, and their intangible ability to deal with high-pressure situations. That's what makes a great player. And I don't know if he has all that stuff. But
he is willing to work. I saw him out here throwing with Niall Davis afterwards. He's not afraid to put in some extra time, and that's certainly a positive.
Yeah, no, it is. And one of the things about Tyler Bray as a leader is that I do think that he has gotten to the point now where he understands that being the quarterback, especially at this level, is about more than just being able to make the throws. He also has to be a good teammate.
No, I mean, anytime a guy needs work and he comes and asks me, I'm going to help him out. I'm not going to go in early and get a shower. I'm going to try to help him out the best I can so I get better on the throws he needs and he gets better on catching the ball.
Is that something that you've learned over time that, you want to help? You always want to be a good teammate, but being the quarterback in particular, you kind of always feel an obligation to kind of be that leadership guy, always be there for your teammates?
Yeah, I mean, you can't get too much practice. I mean, anytime you can get extra throws in, that can help you out and also benefit the guy you're throwing to. It's always a plus.
You know, and I think the fact that he is willing to go out there and work with some of these guys, not just Niall Davis. I've seen him working after practice a lot. He's usually one of the last guys out here, either signing autographs or working with different players. He understands he needs to work a lot. He has a lot of stuff to work on. He's already passed Tyler Bray. That happened in minutes.
Already passed
of
Ricky
showing.
Stanzi.
Or yeah, he already passed Ricky Stanzi. That happened very quickly in camp. Now there are certain aspects where you think he's probably not as good of a game manager or understands the playbook as well as Chase Daniel does. But if you're behind in a game, do you think you would rather have Tyler Bray in that situation?
Than who?
If Alex Smith goes down, than Chase Daniel?
No, not yet.
Not at all. Not
at all. Not yet. You bury him on the bench. You don't have to do anything. He is a 4-year project. And maybe his number gets called beforehand. No, Tyler Bray is not getting into a game this year.
Based on, I don't think he is
both
either.
players will have to go down to injury.
I would agree with that. Yeah, but he slings it. He can make some of these throws that he can make plays, and I don't know if Chase Daniel has that ability.
He can make plays, but I think you gotta. I think he needs to spend 2 years working to get to what he wants.
That's your ideal situation, absolutely.
Yes. Now you might have to call the number earlier, but I think you would really like him. You like that he's out here signing autographs. He's trying to be the good PR guy. You like that he's working with the other guys. That needs to grow. That needs to become more of a habit.
Yes.
Before you just hand him and go, okay, now you're the star. I don't think that you see him at all this year. They're going to have to keep him because he gets signed up, I think. And I'll bet you he got more than any other undrafted rookie out there anywhere to sign. But I think they will not play him at all this year in a regular season game. Maybe gets a couple of passes in a mop-up situation, but playing a meaningful snap, I'd be stunned if you were on the field for that.
Well, that brings up the question as whether or not Alex Smith is going to play the entire year. Because if you're looking at projection of stats for him, I think you're looking at 2007 Donovan McNabb. I mean, I think you're looking at those kinds of production numbers. Maybe a little over 3,000 yards, a little over 20 touchdowns, 14 games started, not 16, because he's never.
And Chase Daniel will be that guy.
And then Chase Daniel will come in. Can Chase Daniel win a game? Because at some point he'll probably have to.
We will find out. TJ, appreciate it, buddy. We'll take a break, come back. Doug Stewart up next. His conversation with Doug Peterson, offensive coordinator, Niall Davis, running back. That's next here in the program. Live at St. Joe, our training camp coverage brought to you by Sonic, the Low T Center, and Randy Reed Chevrolet here in St. Joe. Here from Niall Davis coming on probably to start the next hour. Jason Stark going to slide back towards 12:30, our Major League Baseball insider. So a programming alert for you seam heads. But Doug Peterson at the podium, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and obviously game planning is very minimal for the game on Friday night, but they do have to figure out how they're going to use their personnel to fill the 60 minutes. So that's something they're going through right now. And he talks a little bit about how they plan on using the quarterbacks in game number 1.
This hour of the program brought to you by Worth Harley-Davidson North, I-29 and Tiffany Springs. Why the hell not? You're worth it.
Would not have been good had he continued on his path.
No, but he figured it out, straightened up, flew right, and everything's okay now. We are live here at the practice field at St. Joe, where they have got the rolling pin out. They're flattening the morning's work on it, and the field will get 5 days? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days. 4 days off before it's used again, so a chance for the field to regenerate and keep looking strong. They do a great job on the grounds crew out here. Really only have they practiced over in the stadium yet?
I'm not sure.
I heard Family Fun Day even was out here. I was not here on Family Fun Day.
More room out here.
Randy Reed Chevrolet, Sonic, and the Low T Center are proud sponsors of our Chiefs training camp coverage. Doug Stewart, after practice, catching some of the guys coming off the field. We heard from Doug Peterson talking about 4 quarters, 4 quarterbacks. Going to get a look at everybody. One of the running backs we will get a look at is Niall Davis, and I think he is the maybe the most important piece, the biggest piece that can step forward and make a huge impact for the Kansas City Chiefs. and he looked like he was tired the other day.
And he probably was, as for the second day in a row today, he was the last guy off the field, very last. So he's putting in work. He's staying around a little extra and doing things he needs to. And then today, even after being the last guy to walk off the field, signed a lot of autographs in the middle of the heat. You know they're dog-tired and having to go over there and sign some autographs. So doing it on and off the field, the last guy off the field. And after 6, 7, 8 days straight of padded practices, I asked him how the legs were holding up.
Feeling good, man. I'm just having fun out here. You know, the vets is something that they're used to, but for the rookies, man, every time we go out there, it's something new to us. So we just having fun just being out here in the league.
Let's talk about some of those things you were working on after the full practice was over with your position coach. A lot of hand drills, a lot of blocking drills. How do you like Eric Bieniemy so far, and what kind of things were you working on there at the end?
I mean, he's a great coach, man. Just attention to details. He wants the best out of everybody, so he's going to always push us. You know, in this offense, they ask a lot from the running backs. They want us to catch and run the ball, catch screens, different things like that. So at practice, you know, we working on, you know, catching the ball and blocking, so using our hands. So we got to be good with our hands in this offense.
How do you feel your blocking is? Because when you are in a scheme like this, you never know if you're going to be the only guy back there to help out. You never know where you might end up. How do you feel that is as part of a gear game?
I can block. You know, it's pretty much just knowing who to block. You know, just learning who to block, knowing who you got. Because, you know, it's the league. Defenses, you know, they do good with the skies and blitzes. So it's just finding the person to block. Once I find that person, yeah, I can block them.
And you talk about the system as well, catching passes. I know it's a lot of hands work out here. I know you stayed after yesterday and caught some from Tyler Bray. What about your hands? That's been something with the fumbles that has been talked about. Do you feel like all this extra work's going to help you out? What have you been focusing on?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to work. I mean, no fumble. I haven't fumbled. You know, just working on catching. You know, I didn't catch in high school. I didn't really catch in college. I'm a running back. I run the ball. You know what I'm saying? So in this offense is a little different. You know, he wants us to be versatile and catch the ball. So that's something I need to work on. That's what I've been doing.
And you mentioned you haven't fumbled. Has that been something you've really had in your head since you got here?
Nah, it's just the attitude, man. Just keeping the ball high and tight. That's all it is.
So what about once you get the ball in your hand, do you like when you catch it out in space a little bit? Do you like the screens and flats and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, I like that. I love screens, catching the ball in space. That's what's up. You just got to catch it. Once I catch it, it's on.
What about where you're sitting with this team? You know, you're running there generally right behind Jamal Charles. How do you feel about your spot as a rookie on this spot?
Feel good, man. Just backing up a great running back Pro Bowler. You know, just learning from him. You know, it's really an honor. You know, I'm still, you know, I always looked up to Jamal. He's from Port Arthur, right around the corner from Houston. I've always, you know, known Jamal since, you know, Little League, seen him playing. So, you know, it's just a great honor to be behind him, just learning from him.
What kind of things have you learned from him?
Just how to work. I mean, he's a true professional. He come out here, work, you know, tell me, like I said, with the blocking, helping me pick up different schemes. That's the one thing that's hard for rookies is learning how to, you know, block and pick up that skin. And like I said, in the league, they do a good job of disguising, so he's helped me with that.
First game on Friday night, going down to the South. You going to have some people there? What do you expect from your first NFL game?
I'm expecting it to be everything, you know, that I dreamed of, man. A packed crowd, loud crowd, family there. I played in the Superdome before, so, you know, it's going to be my second time playing there. But, you know, I hope to do good. Last time I was there, I went for 130, so I'm hoping to do the same.
So interesting. He's been at the Superdome before. A couple of guys have played in that facility before and ready to go. And he's had some success there. He's had some success, period. But it looks like he's tackling his deficiencies head on, some of the things he knows he needs to work on. And somebody sent a tweet and said, what does last guy off the field mean? He stayed an hour longer than anyone, the last, 5 feet behind the next to last guy? Well, I know today, I would say half the team was gone half an hour before he was. Then maybe another quarter of the team stayed an extra 15 minutes. And there was about 5 of them that stayed an extra 10 minutes past that. So, yes, from the second to the last guy, he was right off, you know, right behind him. But for the majority of the team, he had been there an extra half hour to 15 minutes.
That means he's trying. Look, bottom line is, and we'll peek under the covers. If you're watching us at 810 WHB TV, you just saw John Dorsey ride up on his bike and come to reclaim some of his property. Interesting bike, by the way. But came riding up and said, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're playing back Doug's interview with Niall Davis. Good kid, isn't he? I said, yeah. So we're, you know, interested. So we're all excited to see. We'll see. But another guy seems to kind of have a smile on his face. Like I mentioned Tyler Bray. Seems to react well when you bring up his name. if the guy can hold on to the ball and stay healthy, he's going to be a stud. Let me take that back. If the guy can hold on to the ball and stay healthy, he's going to be productive. We'll see if he can be a stud. But, I don't know what tone came with the question there on the Twitter at the program KC, if you want to tweet at us. But, I think the point is that he's not just the first guy off the field. A third-round pick isn't going to get cut.
Right.
So he could head off the field really whenever he wanted to. And he's going to make the team. But here's a guy who's really trying to work. And he's got an opportunity. There's a huge hole that he can fill.
And he said in there he hasn't fumbled yet.
Right.
He said, but he's had a few drops and has had a hard time catching the ball every time. And that's what he was working on yesterday with Tyler Bray. He was out there catching passes. Today, the last thing he did, and he took an extra round of it, because they all kind of do it coming off the field. It's catch a football from the jugs gun, catch a tennis ball, then catch a football again. And so they go football, 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 tennis ball, tennis ball, tennis ball, tennis ball, football, 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 football. He took a second round of it. So the things he has been working on is stuff that he feels he needs to work on. And that's what being the last guy off the field means, I think, to me.
And I thought some great insight into the blocking. Well, I can block, but it's figuring out who to block. Yeah, that's the hard part, and that's why a lot of running backs don't get out on the field till halfway through the season or even their second year, because that blitz pickup is huge. If you're going to be out there, you may be in the game to run the ball, and they show a front where you've got to switch to a pass, you're going to have to block. And you switch to a pass because the front says, hey, it's overloaded, we can't run, and we got to be ready to pick up a blitz here. Then you got to know which guy you're supposed to get, inside out, counting down, who's everybody. You really have to learn the responsibilities of everybody on the line, in front of you, how they go, so you know which is the first guy, because it is conceivable that they put too many guys that you can't block. So you got to know which is the guy I get, which guy do I let go free. It's fairly easy. The furthest from the quarterback you let go free. That's why you count from inside out to pick it up. But it's all something he hadn't done before. So I think I'll say it again. I think he's got a chance to make a huge impact for this football team if they can have a top shelf runner on the field at all times, while enabling Jamaal Charles to be fresh, not be overburdened when he got worn down after X number of carries. We looked it up last year. But after a certain carry total, his production went down. So if they can keep him in that highly productive range, around 18 to 20 touches, then I think you got the best chance for a big play out of Jamaal Charles. And if Nile Davis is pounding away and he's giving you big plays as well, then this team becomes very dangerous to defend. 913-3-810-810. We'll take a break. You're on the program live at Chiefs Training Camp here on the practice field of St. Joe.
Just shutout win in franchise history. John, who the largest, was against Oakland in 1984, 16-0. John gets lunch at the Brooksider or the Landing for knowing.
Enjoy, John. You will, either the Brooksider or the Landing. Great place to watch some Royals baseball very soon. Coming this Friday, Chiefs football as well. Go see them and check out a great game. Live music at both locations as well. So check them out, the Brooksider in Brookside, the Landing up in Liberty, the home of one Doug Stewart. We are live at Chiefs Training Camp here in St. Joe, where the mowers are mowing and the roller is rolling, getting the field ready for nothing, as they will not be on the practice field tomorrow. Thursday they will travel to New Orleans. Friday they will play the game. And Saturday, no practice either. Back on the practice field here in St. Joe for your planning purposes on Sunday. Talk about that second biggest shutout. What's the biggest, Curtis?
That is the biggest was the 16-0
was the
against Oakland. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've had two other 13-0s, California in 75 and Milwaukee in 87. So that tied the second largest.
I saw that the 13-run differential is their largest margin of victory since 2007.
I'm amazed it doesn't go back further.
I am too. That's what stunned me. At least back to, I would think one of their great offensive teams, maybe they backed into a good pitching performance with the Beltran, Sweeney, Damon, Dye, Randa,
right?
Offense that they were putting a lot of runs up on the board. I would have thought that maybe back to there. Okay, get me back to 01, that range. But I certainly didn't think 07. Nothing about 07 says great year, does it?
No, and nothing about 84 would have suggested 16 runs. I guess that was not their peak of their offense, but they had great pitching. But yeah, I would have certainly thought the 13-run margin of victory would have gone back at least a decade.
But the Royals get a big one. I'm going to tell you that as a gambler, one of the trends I follow, and it just figures that James Shields would be up next, when I would bet baseball games living in Las Vegas, Teams that have a big offensive night one night generally have nothing the next.
Andrew Alber's major league debut. I don't know how that figures into things.
Well,
for the Twinks.
I'll tell you what it says to me. A young team like this, filled with success, night out drinking.
Yeah.
Debut guy, let's go out and hit the town, guys. Come on, we're on fire. This guy's making his major league debut. I call it the Bobby Keppel syndrome. You know, there's always an opportunity for a guy who's just got just a little bit of stuff when nobody takes him serious, doesn't pay attention to the scouting report, doesn't know what he throws, to come in there and throw BBs at you. Or not even throw BBs at you, just come in there and keep you off balance enough to trick his way through 6 or 7 innings. Maybe some loud fly balls, the opposite field where guys just aren't quite on their timing. And until they build up some numbers after a couple of starts, guys don't take him serious. Then when they do, they read the scouting report, they've got an idea of how they want to attack him, and they go out and they crush the guy, and soon after the guy's sent back to the minor leagues. So, look, maybe it's because I'm a Royals fan and I've watched so much bad baseball that I become a chronic worrier, but they don't support Shields. There's no reason to really knuckle down and go after this guy. There's every reason to be feeling great about the team and yourself. You just had 13 runs. Hey, I got this all figured out, Skip. We got this. Don't worry about us. We got this. And it's right when you go from playing scared, which I think is where the Royals were, and I think that's as much a part that launched them, was that 5-game losing streak at the All-Star break and the talk all around town about firing coaches and managers and general managers and tearing things up, and them looking at it going, you know what, this season is going to fall apart. They've been kind of flirting around with 500. They'd had enough baseball left to play to feel like, well, we got plenty of time to get this together. And then there was some immediacy when they started going, there's only this many games, and they seemed to flip a switch and get things going. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe they're a good, solid team, and for their bad stretch they had earlier in the year, this is the flip side. This is the good stretch they're due. This is the yang to the earlier yin, and they'll balance out and play mostly 500 baseball from here moving forward. I don't know, but I know that I'm worried about tonight. I'm worried about tonight being a 3-1 Twins win where James Shields goes out there and throws another good ball game, 7 to 8 innings, 2 runs, and is losing the whole time, and they end up taking a 3-1 loss. This is an important game. I will tell you that I would have bet against the Royals on Saturday, and they almost blew it, but another one of the trends I followed for a long time is teams that go, and this is true of NBA teams as well, teams that go on a pronounced winning streak. In other words, a winning streak to garner attention as a streak, not 3 wins, not 4 wins. 7, 8, 9, when it starts to be a streak of some stature, they almost always fall twice. They lose one game that's hard fought. That's exactly how they lost on Friday. Down 2-0, score a run in the 8th, score a run in the 9th, and then can't get it done in the extra innings. Then the next game, usually it's like, well, that's fine. We're okay. We'll just keep playing great baseball again. That's what we've been doing. And they have a letdown almost at that point because they're not as quite as hungry. They're not, the streak isn't intact, and they have a letdown, and the team loses. The Royals got by that, and they did have the letdown late that let the Mets back into the game, but ultimately they get past it. So I don't know. I mean, that to me, that win on Saturday was a heck of a win for the Royals.
Yeah, and tonight will be an interesting test case in a lot of theories on baseball, and particularly on this team, not just offensively, but with Shields. You'd like to hope that the presence of a veteran like Shields on the mound and maybe of the presence of someone like Tejada, we'll see how much impact they can have to get a relatively young roster to not fall into that pitfall of, as you said earlier, major league debut, we got this guy, easy, no sweat.
There's been some mixing and matching of the lineup here of late. I am intrigued by the fact that Eric Hosmer remains in the number 2 spot. Last year, anytime he got a couple of hits, they were quickly ready to jam him back into the 3 or 4 spot, which is where they envisioned him. Here, they're either showing some patience or somebody has overridden Ned Yost's instinct, and they got him batting number 2. The game last night, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, Billy Butler, Alex Gordon, Miguel Tejada, Mike Moustakas, George Contreras, Alcides Escobar, Gerard Dyson. Do we see a new lineup? Do we see 3-5, Hosmer Moose, which is to me where they've always envisioned them? Or do they stick with what's working?
I think they stick with what's working.
Is that because
minor tweaks? Who is it, lefty or righty tonight?
Tonight is...
Although with Lowe banged up, I don't know that it's going to make much difference.
It's Albers. Of course, Albers is the very familiar lefty.
Yeah. It was a race to find him on the net.
Bats right, throws left. Lefty.
I wouldn't see any real reason to switch it then. If it was a right-hander, I could see maybe putting Dyson lead off and Kane drop him down or switching things up that way. But I would think it would make sense to stick with what's working.
When do we panic about the Royals All-Stars 633 OPS now? Alex Gordon.
Now?
Panic as long as the team's
not panic,
runs, but when the team stops scoring runs, then it might be panic time.
But when they get up against, like, the Red Sox, you're going to have to go earn your runs. You know, the Mets, like you said, on Sunday gave them a lot of runs, kicking the ball around. You didn't need that many runs against the Mets because they can't score that much. You know, you scored 13 last night, but I think you knew all along you didn't need much against the Twins. This is an impotent lineup. When you get to the Boston Red Sox, when they get later in their schedule and have to play some of the big boys, you're going to actually have to go out and earn your runs because they can put some runs even on your best pitcher. They go in for 5 in a row against the Tigers, they're going to have to score some runs.
Yeah, and he's got to be a part of that. You know, this is the nice thing, though, now that they have more guys hitting. You know, you've got Hosmer. Moustakas is chipping in with a home run every once in a while. You know, Butler still needs to come around as well. You know, you've got some other guys that's not all on Gordon. Gordon can be in a slump, and some other guys are picking him up a little bit. And I think, you know, what they're getting from Tejada here and there, you know, just little things like that, you know, except for Miguel Cabrera, it seems like, there's really nobody else in baseball who's going to hit 330 all year long and drive in a run on average every game and a half or whatever it works out to be. Everybody's going to have slumps and everybody's going to have hot streaks. The problem is when you have only one guy that can have a hot streak and 8 guys who are not very good, then when that one guy has a slump, it's really noticeable and the whole team suffers. Now they've got multiple guys that can have a multi-hit night. Now they've got 3 or 4 guys that are, you know, driving in a couple of runs here and there. Now you can get away with one guy having a bad day. And you assume with his track record now, the last year and a half, eventually he'll come back around. Billy Butler the same way. You assume he's going to come back around. You assume. Right. Maybe not. Maybe this is just a bad year. But, you know, if those guys can come back around, then if Moustakas starts, because Moustakas is going to have another bad stretch. Hosmer's going to have another bad stretch. They're not going to just keep building on what they're doing and end up 320 and 260. I mean, they're eventually going to have a couple weeks in a rough. So you hope that Gordon's got things fixed by then.
And in his last 22 games, to your point, he is hitting, this is Gordon, 165 with just 4 extra base hits. The Royals in those 22 games are 14-8.
Yeah, I mean,
other people are stepping up.
Well, and you can see where lineup construction is important because from Moustakas, starting at Moustakas and going down, Contreras, Escobar, Dyson, runs scored 1, 2, 2, 2. And then it turns over to Kane, 2. Maxwell came in for him, 1 there. Hosmer, 2. Butler, 1. And you had the whole, Gordon and Tejada. That's where the streaks ended up ending. But Tejada's been one of the hotter players. I mean, very rarely has everybody got it going. Last night was kind of unique in why you can't get too excited. They did double a lot, which is nice. They had, 1, 2, 3 doubles and 1 home run, so 4 extra base hits overall in their 16 hits. But they put it together because the lineup was constructed well. I mean, I think if we're gonna nitpick Ned Yost, let's give some credit. They're trying to get Gordon going, but in the meantime, he put together a lineup that was able to string together hits, which is what you need to have big innings. And the Royals certainly had big innings last night. All of their runs came in 3 innings: a 6-run second, a 3-run sixth, and a 4-run seventh. So give some credit to Ned Yost that lineup was pretty productive yesterday. Hopefully we'll see the same one again today. I would think with a lefty on the mound, he'd want the righty going first, with Kane up there, so it'll be interesting to see what the lineup ends up being today. We'll talk more baseball. Jason Stark, our Major League Baseball insider, is next here in the program.
ESPN's Jason Stark and your host, Soren Petro.
Jason Stark, our Major League Baseball Insider, joins us here in the program to talk a little baseball. Brought to you by the fine folks at TicketsForLess.com, 913-685-3322. Royals are in a race, Kansas City. You want tickets, whether it's just in the door or the best seats in the house. There is no better phone number to call than 913-685-3322. The fine folks at TicketsForLess.com will take care of you the way they have us for many, many years. Jason Starks on the Sprint guest line. Jason, how are you, sir?
Soren, I'm a happy man. Trade deadline's over. The A-Rod Palooza is over, and you're back from vacation. It's a triple header.
Well, boy, isn't it good? Let's start with A-Rod. Is it really over, or is it just beginning?
No, you're actually right about that. The first act is over, but there are many acts to come. Unfortunately, it could have been over, but this guy just didn't get the memo.
All right, so he's going to – I mean, I can't blame him. I mean, from what I'm hearing, he's going to go ahead and he's – what is it, contesting it or appealing it?
He's appealing.
Yeah,
he's in for the in case you missed it last night, he's fighting for his life.
Yeah, he's appealing it, which, as I understand it, ultimately this is going to end up at an arbitrator, which there's no way an arbitrator can go through everything very quickly. So he's pretty much good to go the rest of the year, is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing?
Oh, this is going to take months. The people who were saying this will take 45 days, they haven't counted up the lawyers because he's got a lot of lawyers working on this, and they're going to spit out a lot of stuff. Major League Baseball has been investigating for months. They got a lot of data. This arbitrator I was told, is going to have to add a staff just to sift through everything. And then the arbitrator's got a busy schedule in his regular life, so they can't just snap their fingers and have him deal with their mess. So this is going to take a long time. This is like the Ryan Braun pace. So that's, 3-4 months, November, December. Give me a call a week before Christmas. We should have it all wrapped up by then.
Yeah, I mean, that is the timetable, right? End of the year. Calendar year, not
baseball year. It's going to be sometime in the off season. You would hope it wouldn't be too deep into the off season. Everybody kind of needs to know. And the other thing to remember is he still has the right to drop this appeal and settle. They could make a deal with him, and I still think he should make a deal. All the people who think this can't get any worse for him, guess again.
All right. So take me through what happens. So he appeals. It's supposed to be a 211-game suspension. He appeals, and that makes it, and it takes the rest of this year. Is it still 211? So then does the suspension stretch over into 2015? Like anybody's going to sign him afterwards.
If 211 is upheld, the clock starts whenever there's a decision. So whatever suspension he is decided he will serve would start as soon as either there's been a verdict or there's been a settlement. So yeah, it could spill into 2015 if they don't reduce it.
And I don't know how he's been with his money, but by appealing it, he's still getting paid right now. So
yeah, this clearly is, at least to some degree, maybe totally about the money. If he can knock down the sentence, that's worth a lot of money. And remember, he makes more money this year than he's making next year because the contract was front-loaded. So it will cost him less money to serve next year and the year after than it would to serve this year and next year. You may ask yourself, what the heck is this guy fighting for? He's not fighting to prove he's innocent, apparently. He's not fighting for truth, justice, the American way, to prove what a saint he is. He's just fighting. And he's got that right. This is America. Everybody has that right to have their day in court or in front of the arbitrator. That's fine. But there's a danger to this that I wrote about in my column today, just because of all the stuff that Major League Baseball, from what we can gather, has accumulated on this guy going back years and years. And if this stuff starts leaking out, I quoted an attorney in my column today who works in baseball and other sports and is very familiar with this case, and he said, Alex Rodriguez is not just playing with fire, he's playing with acid.
Like it could somehow get worse?
It can get worse. I'll give you a couple scenarios. The best case scenario is look, we know stuff's going to get leaked, correct? We know it is. We've seen it as we've led up to yesterday. We've seen all of the posturing by both sides. And so as witnesses testify, as evidence is presented, you don't think that all the damaging evidence is going to get leaked? And if it does, it's embarrassing at best, incriminating at worst. And then remember the backdrop here. The feds are now on to biogenesis. And leading that quest is Jeff Novitzky. You remember who he is? He's the guy who spearheaded Balco. And what happens if he gets on Alex Rodriguez's tail? I mean, just judging by the stuff that Major League Baseball, again, from what we understand, has been able to accumulate without subpoena power or very mild ability to compel people to testify and turn over what they knew. Imagine if Jeff Novitzky and the feds, the FBI, suppose they start putting this guy in their sight lines with, look at what the statement alleged yesterday, that he tried to impede and obstruct the investigation and frustrated Major League Baseball. And, I mean, there's a lot of talk that that's not the only example of him obstructing, let's put it that way. And so, I mean, this guy should settle and move on, because I think there are a lot of possibilities if he continues to fight that are even worse than what he faced yesterday.
So, but I would think that the government's already onto him and they're going to do whatever they're going to do. They're not going to do more based upon him messing around with baseball, are they? Or
well, I mean, ostensibly, they're not investigating.
You're saying it'd just be better, just let it go, let it blow over. You know, you certainly can't help by continuing to stay in the public eye.
Right. Well, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, ostensibly, this investigation into biogenesis is not aimed at the customers. And that's normally how these things go. Balco, other than the Barry Bonds portion of the fund, was not really aimed at the customers. That's why so many of the players in that witness list just testified and walked. But, it could change if if what they find as they look into biogenesis appears to indicate criminal activity by Alex Rodriguez. I mean, if what Major League Baseball is alleging is true, that he attempted to influence, buy off witnesses, try to influence witnesses to change their testimony to protect them, doesn't this sound like it's not exactly legal activity to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the law starts to take over on what you can and can't do. Paying somebody to not tell the truth to Bud Selig doesn't seem like a crime to me. But
well, I tell you this all the time. I forgot to graduate from law school this week.
No, I'm with you. Me too.
So I don't know what's going to happen. But I just know that several people have told me along the way that if he doesn't watch himself, he could be facing criminal charges, civil suits, or both.
Wow.
And I don't know.
Right,
I'm just telling you what they're suggesting, and it's a little ominous. But then there's the other side of this: what he does to the sport. What's his defense? His defense is, hey, you can't say I'm clean and pure. He's got to try to bring everybody down around him. Major League Baseball for consorting with the likes of Tony Bosch and strong-arming people to testify, the Yankees for conspiring against him, all the people within the sport who he's going to claim enabled him to, I don't know, cheat. You pick your favorite verb there. That's going to be his defense. And you don't think his side is going to leak? Oh, you following this? David Cornwell, from what I can see, likes to be out there in the public eye and the public conversation. And the law firm he just hired specializes in grievances, arbitration hearings, and they're not going to play nice. This is going to be ugly, and as I just said, it's going to last for months. So I think it's going to go away for a little while. But as we build toward the dramatic climax, and there are hearings and people keep digging, I don't like where this is heading. I would much rather have this have ended yesterday. It would have been better for everybody.
And Alex Rodriguez, I mean, he just doesn't get it. I mean, it's like I told you the story about up at Tahoe when he had his bodyguard come over to take a cell phone out of my friend's hand because he had taken a picture of him. Who cares? Who cares? Freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just move on with your life. But he doesn't get that. I am curious. Let's move on to another part of it. We're talking to Jason Stark, our Major League Baseball insider. Nelson Cruz, I'd heard some talk that, like, Rangers people expected him to fight this suspension so he could be available for them on a playoff run, and that this will now greatly, hurt his chances of re-signing with Texas because they feel like, well, he's just doing what's best with him. Let's get the suspension out of the way, which hurts the Rangers now, but makes him a more attractive free agent. His value is still hurt, obviously, by this, but makes him more attractive because he'll be able to play right away with whatever new team he signs with. Are there those feelings in Texas?
Well, he probably wasn't going to be back there anyway unless he made a very team-friendly deal. But he was saying as late as Sunday, the day before, that he didn't know what he was going to do. And they clearly thought that there was a chance he was going to appeal and be available. But, by the time he had to decide, I want you to think about it from his perspective. It was clear that everybody else was just going to take their sentence. And so think about where that would have left him. There would have been everybody else, and then there would have been him and his good friend A-Rod. It would, instead of this conversation yesterday being about A-Rod for 18 consecutive hours, it would have been about Alex Rodriguez and Nelson Cruz and Alex Rodriguez, Nelly and A-Rod. Is that a playground you'd want to play in if you were him?
Yeah, no, not at all. All right, so this is done except for Alex Rodriguez. Or do we think there's going to be – does this just ramp up and tell baseball that they've got to move forward and they've got to get an investigation team and they've got to be doing a better job to try to police themselves? Because they really didn't discover this.
They already have an investigative team. They were on to Biogenesis before the Miami New Times story broke.
Well, that's what they say now. You believe them?
We have an investigative team at ESPN. You familiar with TJ Quinn? He's been on the air a little bit lately.
Does a great job.
He does a great job. And, they were looking into Biogenesis before the Miami New Times, and they know that Major League Baseball was onto it at that point. And just what happened is that Porter Fisher clearly went to the New Times with his stuff first. That caused this thing to explode and created some opportunities for them to get more aggressive, but they were already onto it. And
are there more Biogenesis clinics out there?
Yeah, there are.
And are there more players' names that are going to come out?
The whole anti-aging clinic industry, I don't know if industry is the right word, has exploded, especially in Florida, South Florida. And we know that athletes are customers. If people have not read the story that TJ Quinn wrote last week on Porter Fisher, his interview with Porter Fisher, there's video and there's a story. Porter Fisher was originally a Biogenesis customer. Then he got lured in by Tony Bosch as an investor. And when he realized that Tony Bosch was never going to pay him back, that's when he got ticked off and started leaking. But he did an extensive interview with TJ Quinn in which he said, we had more than 100 athletes as customers, and they spanned a lot of sports, not just baseball. NBA, boxing, tennis, MMA, NCAA. They had high school kids, and I think this should have been one of the biggest stories of this entire saga. He said, other than baseball, not one of those sports has contacted us. And according to TJ yesterday, they still have not. The other sports apparently don't want to know, but sooner or later, this is going to happen to them too. I know it is. I actually, a few years back, we went on vacation in I'll say a Caribbean resort, right? And I met a guy there. He was from Kansas City. And he's in the pharmaceutical industry, and he told me, I don't understand why people are looking at HGH as some kind of horrible substance. I think in 10 years, people are going to look at it as some kind of miracle drug. And he told me about a friend of his who was a former professional athlete whose quality of life changed overnight because he went to an anti-aging clinic and they prescribed HGH for him, and his life changed. There are a lot of people in all walks of life heading for the anti-aging clinics. Athletes are among them. And I heard TJ say 20 times yesterday when we were doing our broadcast marathon that it won't be long before the NBA and the NHL and the NFL all have their biogenesis.
3 minutes.
So stay tuned for that.
All right, so are we going to see the leagues turn to making HGH legal then?
I don't see that. No, it's not happening anytime soon.
So it would be okay for John Q. Public to take something, but not okay for the athlete.
It's not really okay. There are only certain approved medical uses for HGH, but if the anti-aging clinic that you go to has an actual doctor as opposed to a Tony Bosch fake doctor, and that doctor writes you a prescription, you can go get it. And I mean, look, do some reading on it. It's widely believed that many entertainers and people across all walks of life are using HGH.
Yeah, we talked about Sylvester Stallone got pinched for it. Look, I've talked to the same kind of people, not the same guy.
2 minutes.
That said, hey, I don't understand why this is a big deal. HGH is a good thing, and it improves quality of life. Hey, I'm with you. That's why I think it's a very difficult question as we move forward. Real quick, your thoughts on the Royals. Hopefully they'll be playing well a week from now. We can spend more time on them. But they're back in the wild card race. They're just 4 games back. What kind of chance do you give them?
Have you ever done the math on where they'd be if they hadn't gone 4-19? It'd be 20 games over 500 now, right? That's where the Tigers are. Right. These are the teams that are 20 games over 500. Nobody in the AL West is. Nobody in the NL West is. The only teams in the sport that are 20 games over 500 are the Braves, the Pirates, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Tigers. And so, recent history is filled with examples of teams that were in the Royals' position and made a run. The Dodgers have gained, I think it's 15 games in the standings in 6 weeks. Now, the Royals are not playing in the NL West, where everybody's going backwards. The Tigers and Indians never stop winning either. But when you're 5 games over 500, and you've got, 53 to play? Is that what they've got? You're alive. And especially considering what kind of team the Royals have been, minus that one stretch. I know that stretch counts, but if you're really looking at big picture, why would you not think this team has a chance? Don't have a lot of margin for error, but certainly have a chance.
Is there reason to believe this offense is sustainable? Is there reason to believe that the pitching is sustainable? The starting pitching, we get excited because they're actually hitting the ball because they didn't hit it at all, but the starting pitching's been insane too.
Starting pitching's been tremendous. Pitching in general has been tremendous. That's how you win. And I don't know how many variations of this conversation we've had about the Royals offense all year, but from the beginning, what have I said? I said that people didn't understand why the Royals were playing the way they played in May, that people looked at the players on the diamond and thought there was a lot more there than what they were seeing. Changing hitting coaches, I think, has made a big difference. I can't tell you whether they're going to sustain it, but I can tell you the talent is there to score enough with this pitching staff to win, assuming health and luck.
Jayson Stark is with us, our Major League Baseball insider, brought to you by TicketsForLess.com. Final Four time, Jason. You ready?
Been waiting for weeks for the Final Four.
The 2 AL wild cards will be who?
The 2 AL wild cards will be, I'm going to say Boston and Cleveland.
Red Sox and Indians. Boy, that's not going to make you popular, that Indians pick. Okay.
Just because the second place team in the AL East is going to be one of them, and the Indians have such a great schedule.
Yeah. All right. Did you ever cover a football camp in your career?
A football camp?
Yeah.
A football training camp?
Yes.
I've been to football training camp. Yes, I have.
But have you covered it?
I was a guy passing through. I was filling in for somebody, or I came in to write a column or two. That's about the size of it. Okay. I never stayed there for a month.
Right.
I've been to a few spring trainings though.
All right, but that's a yes. Who has more career home runs when it's done, Hosmer or your boy Jason Hayward?
My boy.
Mm-hmm.
My boy.
You're very big on Hayward.
I am going to say Jason Hayward. He's a little bigger. He's a little stronger. He's shown a little more power potential, I think, than Eric Hosmer. I think Eric Hosmer is going to grow into being an excellent hitter. But if we're just talking power, right, more home runs, so I'll go Hayward.
Hayward has 69 in his 23-year-old season. 45.
Right, same age, correct?
Yes, 45. I'd have to look at the birth dates to see if somebody's sliding one in there by some months. Hosmer, October 24 of 89. Hayward is August 9th of 89. So Hayward's much older. 3 months older. Much older.
Yeah, way older.
Much older. So we'll see if that factors in the long run. That's one to put on the bulletin board. We'll keep an eye on. And finally,
that's one of your most fun Final Four questions in a while, by the way.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that. The MLB Executive of the Year is who? Keep in mind this award means very little because Allard Baird once won it, and he still is not.
First of all, I don't think there is an MLB Executive of the Year.
Sure there is, isn't there?
But there's one in each league. I will go with.
Give me the AL then.
All right, I'm going to say Ben Sherrington. I mean, they had their worst season since 1960, whatever it was last year, and don't they have the best record in the American League right now? They do.
So who would be second?
What are you getting at?
Fishing.
All right. I mean, look, Andrew Friedman could retire this award, but just to be different, I'll go Chris Antonetti in Cleveland.
30.
No, but no Dayton Moore.
I guess Dayton would be in the conversation. But
20 seconds.
I'm going to say those guys would rank about. He'd probably be a little kind of middle, upper left part of the middle of the pack for me.
All right, good to know. Jason,
10 seconds.
Stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Sharon. Thanks.
All right, Jason Stark, our Major League Baseball insider. Adam Teicher, our Chiefs insider for the Kansas City Stars, coming up next. Sprinklers are now going. Watering the field that won't be used again until Sunday. Public service announcement. Don't come up looking to see practice tomorrow. They're off tomorrow, traveling Thursday, play a game down in New Orleans Friday. Travel back Saturday, back on the practice field on Sunday. But Adam Teicher is still working, veteran scribe from the Kansas City Star. Joins us here in the program to talk some Chiefs football as he does every Tuesday. Adam, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Sven?
Not too bad, not too bad. Let's start with now we begin to focus on that first game. We had a chance to talk to John Dorsey a little bit earlier. I'll get into some of his comments here in a little bit. But this first game coming around, who are we looking at? Who needs to have, one of the guys we said earlier, I said, who needs to have a big game? And I'll start with Alex Smith. He's been pretty much under the radar here because we talked so much Alex Smith and the build-up to the Chiefs acquiring him, then after they acquired him, that he's kind of talked to death. I mean, every stat, every number, every nuance about the guy's been talked to. We know he's the starter, so there's no tracking his passes against so-and-so's passes. the storylines have been elsewhere, but now he's going to actually have to go play a game in a Chiefs uniform. I think the most is riding on him.
Yeah, but, in the bigger picture, if he goes out and plays like a turd, I mean, is that a really big deal? I think
it's a bad PR deal. It hurts.
It's a bad
tickets.
PR deal, and it's I think in certain areas maybe you can generate a little momentum in the preseason that carries over. Right. I think they need to get execute well. I mean, we know they're going to run a watered down version of their playbook, a very watered down version. I mean, they're shifting and motioning and on every single play out here. I don't know how much of that, if any, they're going to do. So, obviously they're not going to be game planning or anything like that. But still, the guy is an accurate passer, completed 70% plus, I think, last year. Be on target, get some things done. A couple 3-and-outs is probably a bad way to start this thing. In the big picture, it's probably meaningless, but I agree. They need to get a little something going on here.
We heard Doug Peterson say today after practice, 4 quarterbacks, 4 quarters. Each one will get a quarter, so it means the first quarter. I assume it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe they'll mix it up for some reason. I can't imagine, but I would think it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. So Alex Smith is probably going to get the first quarter. A nice 5 for 7 for 81 yards and a touchdown will go a long way towards fans feeling really good. A 2 for 9, a 1 for 6 with a couple of 3-and-outs or a 1 first down off a running play and, an 0 for completion deal, a pick.
Uh-oh. Now you're getting into dangerous territory.
Well, we are. I mean, we're going to spend – now they'll get 2 days cooling off period for the fan base before they get to attack the phones on Monday with us. And the Royals are playing good baseball, which has actually taken something away from the focus on the Chiefs as well and the focus on Alex Smith. But as well as I do, they're going to be rioting in the city if he has that kind of day.
No doubt about it. And, while you're right, there'll be 48 hours or so before they can get on talk radio. Twitter is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And we'll have a post game
and
too,
the internet.
Night.
So yeah, I mean it's he'll be used as a punching bag, no doubt about it. Now, he's big enough to overcome that, or he better be, or the Chiefs are in real trouble. So
because he's going to have a bad quarter at some point this year.
Absolutely, and
it would just be ideal for the franchise that it not be this first one that he actually debuts.
Absolutely, and maybe that third game when they're really trying to get something going. So we'll see. But I do like how he's played out here. But it's time to. You're right. It's time to do it against outside competition.
We know they don't try to win the games. We know they water everything down. But we've seen the Chiefs kind of get pushed around in preseason here for a number of years, and it's carried over. They've been pushed around in the season. It would be nice if your watered-down playbook against their watered-down playbook should equal, whoever's got the better players.
No doubt.
Let's push them around and run the ball. That would be a good sign for this team, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The Chiefs have not had a winning preseason since 2003. Since Dick Vermeil's team won the AFC West that one year. Other than that, they've been either 2-2 or worse. I think there's 3 0-4s in there. The cumulative record is 7-29 over the last few years. I mean, that's, I think you could probably say there's little correlation between preseason results and regular season results as a whole. But there is something to be said for building a little bit of momentum and not going in with the stench into the regular season. I just think if everything's negative and you repeatedly play poorly, as we've seen the last few years in the preseason, it's hard to resolve all those issues in time for the regular season to begin.
When you win, you don't have to sit and analyze, the Rams kept their starters in 2 more series than the Chiefs did, and they scored 10 points in that time. We've been doing a lot of that around here, and trying to find a way to say, hey, look, let's not overreact to the preseason because here are some nuggets there. I remember one of the games, I think it was maybe even the first one, Brady Quinn went right down the field and then threw a pick. It'd be nice to go right down the field and then not throw a pick, kick a field goal, do whatever. But Alex Smith is the centerpiece of who's got to perform well. Correct?
But he's not the only one. I mean, it's Alex Smith, and that's where a lot of the attention going. But
who's next?
I think Alex Smith will eventually be what the Chiefs hope he can be. Eric Fisher. I mean, he got off to a really, really tough start. Didn't look very good. Looked lost early in camp. Maybe a little better lately. What is his readiness for the regular season? I mean, he's still got time to progress and be ready for that Jacksonville game. But let's see what Eric Fisher's got. They've got a lot riding on him, and if he has a bad game against Jacksonville, that doesn't mean he's a bad pick. he'll eventually develop into an okay player, I think. But they need him right away. I mean, they don't need him to be some kind of long-term project here. I mean, they need Eric Fisher to be good right away. And so, I want to see Eric Fisher and see what his readiness is. And, if Eric Smith is holding it down on the right side, I think that's a pretty good sign for the Chiefs offensively.
Do the Chiefs, I mean, shouldn't we have expected him to be a little bit slow? I mean, he did come from Central Michigan.
Yeah, but you know what? They drafted him number 1.
Right.
And, he showed one of the reasons they drafted him number 1 is that he showed really well against better competition in the Senior Bowl. That was kind of the litmus test for him. Hey, is this just a star against lesser prospects, or is this a star against bigger name guys? And he answered to everybody's satisfaction that question at the Senior Bowl. So, I don't think you should have lesser expectations for Eric Fisher. He needs to be ready to go. That's why it was so important for him to be here from day one camp.
One of the things you wrote about in the Star today is that they're short on tackles. Well, what are they going to do? They've got 4 healthy offensive tackles, and one is Jeff Schwartz, who they'd probably like to get some snaps at guard, too.
Yep.
So what are they going to do?
They'll have to move it inside, when the backups are in there, when maybe in the second half, they'll have to move probably a guard to tackle, and he'll have to play some there this week.
We're going to see some Jeff Allen and some Jeff Schwartz, some of the guys that figure to be utility-type guys?
I don't think we're going to see that. I mean, I think that would be a mistake. They need to play those guys where they're going to play them, get them out, and then maybe some of your spare type offensive linemen might have to step out of position and play some tackle.
Does that give us a chance to accurately evaluate anybody else?
Maybe not, but that's the situation the Chiefs are in right now until Donald Stevenson. And,
when's he back?
Well, supposedly he'll be back next week. We'll see.
All right. Talking to Adam Teicher, our Chiefs insider from the Kansas City Star. We'll take a break, come back. We're at the practice fields here at Missouri Western. Our camp coverage brought to you by Sonic, the Low T Center, and Randy Reed Chevrolet.
Have something to say.
Joins us here from the Kansas City Star, our Chiefs insider. Joins us every Tuesday in the program, every day of Chiefs training camp. Adam, we were talking about players to watch, guys to keep an eye on. Been through Fisher, been through Alex Smith. What about some of the other quarterbacks? What about Chase Daniel? There are not favorable returns. What most people's opinion of Chase Daniel up here has not been impressive. Does he need to show well?
Well, he's done some pretty good things. I think that would give everybody a comfort level if all those guys played well. But, for now at least, Chase Daniel is solid as the number 2 guy. And yes, it would give everybody a better feeling about him if he had to play during the regular season, if he gets it done during training camp. But, or if he gets it done during the preseason. I mean, he's been a little up and down himself during camp. He's had some good days. He's had some not so good days. So, that would inspire some confidence for sure.
Do you expect to see Tyler Bray? I mean, we're going to see for a full quarter. Do you expect to see something impressive? He's impressive throwing the ball in drills.
Yep.
Or as when we see game fire, we're going to see what it was that kept. Right. I asked John Dorsey point blank. So you watch the ball come out of his hand, it comes out different. It's obviously he's got a special arm, very expensive arm, but he didn't get drafted. Now we all know what we sit here and talk about. Is he heartless? Is he brainless? Is he just a complete team cancer? Is there some skeletons in the closet? We know about some throwing some stuff off a building and all that. But is there some really bad stuff on this guy? Of course, he did a great job of fielding the question and said, well, the guys like that slip through every year. No, they don't. No. But no. I respect his need to answer that way. Are we going to be impressed with this guy? Because a bad Alex Smith performance and a nice performance out of Tyler Bray, and they love the fan base loves the backup quarterback.
No doubt.
Are we gonna see something special out of this kid, or are we gonna see some rookie mistakes? And okay, nice arm, sit and cook for a couple of years, and we'll see what we get when the oven dings 2 years from now.
I mean, it's hard to predict what you're going to see in a preseason game. The guy has some developing to do. I mean, there's no question he's got an uncommon arm. I've seen a number of undrafted quarterbacks come through Chiefs camp over the years. None of them can compare to Tyler Bray in terms of strength of arm or ability to make all the necessary throws. I mean, no one's close to him in that regard. And he's probably in that, just as a pure passer, he's probably the best quarterback the Chiefs have in camp right now. And we're talking about a group that includes a former number 1 overall draft pick. So, that's a pretty impressive thing to say about a guy. So,
he's working after practice.
He's got the ability. Now, if he can eventually put it all together and when that happens, Too early to say, but I've been saying from the start, this guy has too much ability to cut him loose and just send him on his way. And unless he's hurting you in some other way, the Chiefs absolutely have to keep him around and develop him and try to see if there's something there.
It'll be a shock if he's not on the team the way things look right now. He's staying after practice. He's throwing with guys. TJ Carpenter talked to him today after practice, and he kind of backed off that, it's no different than the SEC. He's kind of admitting, no, it's different. And I think he feels better about his play. That was the sense that TJ got, was that, a little more confident, a little bit more ready to acknowledge that I don't know it all because there's a feeling that I have accomplished something. Okay, I'm starting to get some things. I'm starting to do some things out here. So maybe he's not quite as defensive as he was early on. Are you sensing that from him as well?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think he's just becoming more comfortable with the whole routine out here, and he's probably becoming a little more confident. I mean, he's getting some things done out there. I mean, the kid, if he's paying attention at all, I mean, he's able to compete in the NFL from a just an ability standpoint. There's no question about that. Now, whether he'll eventually be able to read defenses and put in the kind of work that a star NFL quarterback needs to put in, we'll see.
Is there a more diverse quarterback room than the Chiefs?
As far as?
Well, you got, 5'10", 2 1/4.
No.
You got 6'3", 225. You got 6'7", and then you got, American eagle tap. What's he got on his back? I forget what it is.
Yeah, it's an eagle.
A big eagle on his back.
Bald eagle, yeah.
Ricky Stanzi.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a different group, and you like to think, at least particularly with Bray, I mean, when was the last time the Chiefs had a true developmental quarterback that you saw some real ability in, that you saw, hey, this guy has a chance?
Tyler Thigpen.
I'm going back past Tyler Thigpen.
Really? You saw no ability in Tyler Thigpen?
Seriously, when was the last time the Chiefs brought a quarterback in as a rookie where you say, you know what, this guy's got some uncommon ability?
I mean, look, I thought
Todd Blackledge. I don't know. That was before my time. I don't even know what kind of ability Todd Blackledge had.
I'll stand by my answer of Tyler Thigpen because he had ability. I mean, he could throw the ball. He's played games in this league. I mean, he's moved an offense in this league. Now, it's not your traditional. If you're saying the traditional stand tall in the pocket, let it fly, big arm guy. Never.
If I'm going to run
the James Killians, the Pat Barnes, the other quarterbacks
Steve
that have been
Matthews,
drafted by this team, no, I never really saw anything from those guys. I mean, I often sat here and went, what the hell did they see on the field? And I know the quarterback's a hard spot to get your arms around and translate playing quarterback at Memphis for, say, Steve Matthews, who you mentioned, to here is, who was the kid from Tulsa?
Killian.
James Killian. It's a whole different ball game. No, he's the most impressive physical specimen and thrower of the football that I have seen the Chiefs have at a development stage for quite some time.
Okay.
Still, we'll keep scratching our head as to what it is. Hopefully he figures it out. My fear, the reason why TJ said, well, at some point we got to move on from that. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't ever move on from it, in my opinion. And I get TJ's point. I think we're of similar mind. I'm not calling TJ out. His point was, at some point we got to focus on what he does here, and he's right. But I think in the back of your mind, you've always got to keep, what was it? Because to me, he's one of those. I'm hoping that it's just he's so good, and he's so headstrong that it's just he's been good enough to play without really studying his playbook. He can study the playbook, but he didn't need to do it because he was still the starter at Tennessee without doing it. That now he's going to be pushed. And so from that standpoint, I almost hope he doesn't play that well. Like if you could tell at the end, this guy is good enough to be an NFL starting quarterback, I would hope he'd have a down series of games here so that he sits there and works scared. Like, I got to know the playbook. I got to know my progressions. I got to pick the brain of Alex Smith. I got to do everything I can just to keep a job in this league because that kind of hungry is a good thing.
Well,
the difference is, what if he does become the starter? Is that then good enough? Then you wonder, okay, now we paid him. Is that good enough? And he relaxes because it's the truly elite. Tom Brady, physically, Tom Brady may not be able to do all the things Tyler Bray does. So obviously, being a great quarterback is more than just that, and that's the big question.
Sure, and you'd hope that Tyler Bray has that fire in him regardless of whether he fails or not. Because if he's only going to work really hard when things aren't going well, that's great, but you want him working hard all the time, and things are going fairly well for him out here right now, and you want him working hard regardless. And He's not going to get where he needs to be without working that way, regardless of failure or success.
All right, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball when we come back. Some guys that need to shine coming up. Also get into biogenesis. Jason Stark was with us in our last segment talking about how the folks at ESPN say, hey, it's coming to every other sport. It's just a matter of time. How big a problem is it in the NFL? We're talking to Adam Teicher here in the program, live at the Chiefs practice field. Our camp coverage brought to you by the Low T Center, Randy Reed, Chevrolet in St. Joe, and Sonic. We know there's a competition. Are we really staring down Nico Johnson? I mean, to me, a lot of people are. I heard the statement. Well, if he doesn't take over at some point for Hakeem Jordan this year, that'll be a disappointment. He's a fourth rounder. You bust my chops about saying you need to at least have all your draft picks make the team. But how about fourth round ought to be starting sometime this year? Now that's aggressive.
A little bit, but he's got a big game, big time background. He comes from a big time program.
Where he was taken off the field on passing downs.
Well, he's going to be taken off the field on passing downs on this team too.
So do we
he's playing. So by starting, you're suggesting that he's not going to play maybe even less than half the plays because he comes off the field when the other team brings in a third receiver. So how much is Nico Johnson really going to play if he wins up the starting position? 40% of the plays? Well, how much does the opponent flood the field with extra receivers? We'll see, but it's not really a full role. So we'll see how much he would play if he starts. I don't consider that to be a full. That's not a Derek Johnson role. That's not a anybody else role on that defense. That's a part-time starting job is what it is.
Is Bob Sutton somewhat on display? Do we need to see him? No, he's going to water everything down. We're not going to see his exotic blitzes.
I think it's too early for that. But you know what? Here's what I'm looking at defensively is the corners. I don't know how much the Chiefs are going to blitz. I don't know how much they're going to leave their corners on an island one-on-one with the New Orleans receivers. But if they do, how do those guys hold up?
Because there's some good ones there in New Orleans.
Yeah, there are, and Sean Smith has done a pretty nice job out here so far with that. We know what Brandon Flowers is. Dante Robinson's more of a nickel guy, but let's see how he does. It's to me that's kind of what I'm looking for. I think the Chiefs will be able to get some pressure, certainly more pressure than they have in the last couple of years on the opposing quarterback. How many more big plays will they also give up? If that's a big number. What have the Chiefs really gained here? You know what I'm saying? But so I think to me one of the keys to their defense is are they able to limit the opponent's big plays, and we'll get a little bit of a clue on that maybe starting Friday night.
Are the Saints a bad team to have on the schedule here for a preseason game? I mean, you sign contracts for it, so you do kind of pick your preseason schedule. And they've got so many receivers. Their base offense is 3 wide with a tight end that goes out on every play. So is that a bad team to be trying to just measure your guys against?
I don't think so. I mean, again, when you're mostly evaluating your young guys, what's the difference? You're just looking to see what a guy can do. And by the way, the Chiefs the NFL teams don't make their preseason schedule. They are able.
That's what I said. The team signed them. So is that a bad?
No, they don't make their schedule. I mean, the league assigns the games.
No.
In preseason, there's one game. The final preseason game, teams are able to arrange on their own. Otherwise, the league assigns schedules. They do it for TV purposes.
So when I hear that agreement with, that's really just one game. I'm just
that's not to say the Chiefs
bleeding over in my memory like it's signing all the games, but they really only signed one themselves.
That's not to say the Saints won't come back to Arrowhead next year, but that would be more coincidence than anything.
And for the Chiefs, it's always the Rams.
Well, it's usually the Rams, but the last few years they've arranged that game to be Green Bay. I mean, for whatever reason, I really don't know what the reason is. But,
to steal John Dorsey covertly from the Packers.
That may have been their plan 4 years ago when they started this series. But I do know the Chiefs like playing on grass more than AstroTurf. Maybe that's got a little something to do with it. Now they're going to be playing on AstroTurf Friday night for sure, or the field turf. But they prefer to play on grass.
And so this is the 4th year of it?
Green Bay, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so they would have played them once in there in the regular season too, and they still went ahead and scheduled it. So
they did.
Interesting. All right, the defensive line. Is there anybody we could see? We've heard Austin Lane's name thrown around a couple of times. He's a guy with some experience from Jacksonville, but getting cut by the 2-14 Jags isn't exactly a badge of honor.
Nope.
We seen anything other than the usual suspects, the names we already know along that defensive line?
No, probably not. But, Dontari Poe's having a nice camp. Let's see if he can transfer it to a game situation. I don't know how much he's going to play, but, that's a big key guy for the Chiefs this year. Alan Bailey has shown a little bit as a pass rusher. I've kind of liked him in that role a little bit at times in the past. Maybe he's maturing there. So there's some guys to watch on that line, but I wouldn't expect a lot from Austin Lanham. He's done a pretty nice job in one-on-one pass rush, so there is some skill there, pass rush skill, but and maybe he turns into an Arcal Truluck kind of guy where he just kind of comes out of nowhere and can be a situational pass rusher for him. We'll see.
Gerald Poe, I thought he almost never got on the field in the previous regime, but I thought when he did, there actually were some plays that were made by that guy. Has he got any chance of being a guy for this team?
If you're 325 pounds or more, they have your undying devotion. I mean, you love the big guys. You just do.
I do.
You
because
love the big guys. Terrence Cody, the fatter the better, right?
The fatter, the better.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. That's my motto in assessing talent. The fatter, the better.
And Dontari Poe, the reason you don't like him is doesn't have a lot of. He's just a huge guy. He doesn't have a lot of fat on him.
I like Poe. I wasn't all against it. I said, look, it's a risk. I acknowledge the risk in taking a guy who, did nothing at Memphis. I mean, come on, it's a risk. But Gerald Poe played at Ole Miss, and I think there should be something there. And he was an early exit. I just remember talking to his coach. And his coach said, look, he goes, I would rather him come back a year because he said, I think if he works on some things, you're talking about a guy who could be a second-round pick in the NFL. I think there's some ability there. Now, maybe he's lazy. I don't know. That's why I just bring it up. I think there's ability. When you can play at the level he did at Ole Miss and the things that I heard being said about him, I think you should be able to get something out of that guy.
Maybe the Chiefs have done a lousy job developing him. I mean, that's possible too. But I wouldn't expect a lot out of him this year. I mean, clearly he's going to be a backup. He'll maybe get in that rotation a little bit, but I wouldn't expect a lot out of him. No.
Do we begin to see the changing of the guard on Tamba Hali? We've seen them working on different sides. Are they trying to? Have they looked at it and said, "Hey, Houston's got the better first step. We need to get him on the blind side of the quarterback"? Are we going to watch them flip-flop sides?
I don't think that'll be a consistent thing. I think Bob Sutton's thing is they're mixing guys up, and sometimes they use them on the same side. And Derek Johnson's over there. I mean, they've come up with some pretty unusual alignments on defense.
And that's
I think part of what they're doing out here is seeing how things look. What does this look like? Can we make this work? Those kinds of things. But as far as a consistent thing, I don't think they're at that point yet. And here's why. Tamba Hali is going to be more or less a consistent pass rusher. You'll see him drop into coverage, but not a lot. Justin Houston's going to drop into coverage more than Tamba Hali. You might not like that, but Justin Houston's not a liability in coverage like Tamba Hali is.
Well, I like it as a changeup because we know when you walk up, the first thing the center does is he marks the 5 bigs. Okay, the 5 guys that the offensive line is required to take care of, and the center is going to identify who he thinks is coming on a pass down. So we know the down lineman will get identified. They're going to identify Tamba Hali, and I don't mind him dropping into coverage because the next guy you would identify is Justin Houston because he's the next best pass rusher. And when he drops into coverage, when he identifies that means your tackle is going to fan out to him. And when he doesn't come, now you've got an offensive tackle, theoretically one of the best offensive blockers, that now doesn't have anyone to block. He's got to find somebody else. And if the guy who's actually coming as the 5th guy is back on the other side and it's a safety, and that's how you get the exotic blitz schemes. It's basically just the zone blitz that came about where they started dropping defensive linemen and coming with linebackers. But that's how you don't know where guys are coming. It's not a riddle. It's not something that you couldn't with a whiteboard in a quick run of a play demonstrate to somebody and get them fairly up to speed. But he's got to have the ability to cover to make that work. Now, the first thing is if you do it once in a while and it's just a change up, no, we expect to get there with the safety in 2 seconds, so he's not going to get rid of the ball. But there are going to be times where they pick that up. He's got to go cover somebody, like the Saints. If you're going to pull one of the exotic blitzes and you're going to come, we don't know where anybody's coming from. Okay, we're coming with a corner. Well, somebody's got to get Jimmy Graham. And so Justin Houston's going to have to cover Jimmy Graham because Jimmy Graham's going to be a hot route. And so if he's going to cover, he damn well better be able to do it. This is why this isn't a real regular season game, so we're not going to see everything. But in that case, if you're going to blitz off the back with Eric Berry or the nickel, the slot corner is going to come, you're going to have to pick up down the line. The safety's going to have to step up and get him, and now the linebacker's going to have to pick up Jimmy Graham. Can he do that?
Thanks for the football lesson, by the way, Coach Petro. I was really hoping we could scare up a chalkball where you could draw some stuff up while you were talking there. But, yeah, I mean.
We'll do that later over at your dorm room.
That's the point of dropping Tamba Hali from time to time, is to give him that. And I guarantee you they don't drop him into coverage because they think he's going to do a great job covering the tight end or whoever might come out on the backfield. I mean, they're dropping him back there as a change of pace. Hey, let's give these guys a different look. Now, what we're going to see Friday night, you can't predict. But it would surprise me to see Bob Sutton do some different things, some unusual things, just to maybe just in the spirit of, hey, let's look at this in a live game just to see what we've got here and see whether this indeed does work against a team that'll give you do a lot of different things offensively.
Justin Houston, so you don't think he's necessarily just going to be an attack guy?
No, Let me tell you what some of the things, Coach Petro, that I've noticed out here in the practice field that leads me to. Okay, sometimes the Chiefs they'll split up during practice, and the receivers, backs, and quarterbacks will go against the DBs and the linebackers in a 7-on-7
and Houston's going with them.
And meanwhile, your pass rushers go against your offensive linemen in the one-on-one drills. They'll start Tamba Hali with the pass rushers and leave him there during that whole drill. Meanwhile, Justin Houston will usually start off with the 7-on-7, the covering receivers. Then they'll send him down to the other end of the field to rush the quarterback. So Justin Houston's doing a little bit of both. Tamba Hali is almost, I don't want to say exclusively, but almost exclusively is rushing the quarterback. That tells you a little bit about how the Chiefs are thinking of those guys and how they plan to use them.
Can we pick up anything by who the safeties are?
Safeties.
On defense, I mean, are we going to see that Tyson Hartman's getting a lot of run? Are we going to see?
Why wouldn't you?
Are we going to see that, or are we going to see something like Dante Robinson's playing some safety?
I haven't seen any of that out here so far. So I think one of the reasons they signed Quentin Demps and Hussein Abdullah, by the way, I think they're trying to find a veteran guy where they don't have to play Dante Robinson at safety.
All right, so one of those guys will make it as the third guy.
And they both might make it, yeah. And they might keep Hartman. They're going to keep a lot of defensive backs. I'll tell you that right now. Going to keep 9, maybe even 10.
Really?
It's going to be like a 13-man bullpen, yes. Going to keep a lot of those guys.
Okay. Interesting. We'll take a break. We come back with Adam Teicher. We'll talk about biogenesis. Does the NFL need to be looking at that as well as go over a couple more players? It is Adam Teicher from the Kansas City Star who joins us every Tuesday here in the program. Adam, Jesse Haynes. Do you remember Jesse Haynes? That was on your watch, wasn't it?
I remember J.J. Moses. Do you remember J.J. Moses?
Yeah, Moses. Iowa State kid, wasn't he? Yeah, he's going to be a dynamic kick returner. Who is the Jesse Haynes, J.J. Moses? Who is the camp phenom that the fans love that is going to end up, and maybe even the media loves? Or the coaching staff loves, and then when they get into the films go, yeah, he's not going to make it.
I don't know if they have anybody on that level, but
J.J. Moses.
Devin Wiley maybe is a guy, a little guy who's, showed really nothing. I mean, he's fast, but he showed really nothing last year as a rookie. He's had a pretty good camp. Let's see what happens with him. I'm not predicting his demise, but I don't see a huge role for him. He's not an outside receiver. He's, 5'10" and 190 pounds. He's basically a slot guy, and they've got a guy to do that. So I don't see a huge role for Devin Wiley, no matter what he shows. And then there's a wide receiver by the name of Rico Richardson, who out of Jackson State. I mean, he's got some speed, and
your boy Randy Kovich writing about him the other day.
Worth taking a look at. I mean, he's done some nice things out here, but there are, again, as we've said, there's a lot of guys who've done some nice things early in camp, and then when the games start, they just sort of fade away.
What about Austin Lane?
Austin Lane is an interesting guy. He's got some pass rush ability. I mean, he schooled Eric Fisher one day this week or last week. The days are all running together. Recently, so he's got some pass rush skills. So you want to look at a guy who can rush the quarterback. I mean, those guys just don't. You just don't find them anywhere. I'm sure that's why the Chiefs picked him up, so they could get a look at him. And he's not an every down guy. He's just a guy who would be a situational guy. And right now, they don't seem to be working him in with any of their top groups. So I'm wondering whether the Chiefs think as much of him as we've seen so far, as maybe the fans have been able to see. So we'll see. He's not a real big guy. He's playing defensive end at about 250, something like that. So, but he's a guy worth watching.
Is there anybody that you're starting to think is going to be a camp cut that's been kind of a certainty to be on the roster? I mean, is Alan Bailey getting passed up? I'm trying to think of guys that are look like they're kind of comfortable and secure in where they are, but really haven't done a whole lot on the field in their career that you could see getting left behind.
Yeah, John Baldwin would fit into that category, except
He's
this.
never done anything.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do if you cut John Baldwin? You have somebody you know is better than John Baldwin. No one out here has really shown.
Is Junior Hemingway better? I know he hurt his finger, but
possibly, but he's out of the mix a little bit now, and you have to wonder when he's coming back. Don't know yet. Donnie Avery's fast, but
they're not leaving him behind. They signed him.
Yeah, and they're not. Well, certainly they're not leaving him behind. But I'm saying the only way they cut Baldwin was if they feel like they've got somebody better than Baldwin.
Right.
I mean, right now there's no sense in cutting him unless you've got somebody in mind to take his place that you feel is clearly better than John Baldwin. I mean, he was a first-round draft pick. He does have ability. It's just a matter of him showing it and doing it. And he hadn't been able to do that yet, and he may never be able to do with it. But right now they have nobody better than John Baldwin.
2 minutes.
So we'll see.
Nobody along that offensive line could be a surprise cut?
Not among the main guys. I don't see that right now, no.
Running back, Sean Drone.
Would that be a surprise? It's either he or Cyrus Gray. They may make that decision based on special teams ability. So,
okay,
but that wouldn't be a surprise to see.
They don't
Cyrus
go four
Gray
deep with the running backs.
I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would. You can, if there's an injury and you need another guy, you can go find a Cyrus Gray. You can go find a Sean Drone after the season starts. So I don't know why you would.
We're talking to Adam Teicher here in the program. Mentioned earlier, Jason Stark was on. He said one of the biggest things, the biggest story to come out of the biogenesis thing that really isn't getting the pub that he thinks it deserves. That's the statement that they said that in their clientele down there at Biogenesis, they had professional athletes from all the sports. And not one, except baseball, is called to talk to them. So I'm assuming that's football as well. How big of an issue do you think it is around the NFL? And is the NFL just burying its head in the sand?
Well, they may be burying their heads in the sand. Why wouldn't you at least call down there and say, hey, do we have a problem too? If you're the league, why wouldn't you at least call down there and see? And that may be the next shoe to drop here in this deal. We may be seeing these 13 guys or whatever number was of baseball players who are suspended. We may be seeing a lot more than that in football. You just don't know right now.
Should football be getting a lot more criticism than they are? I mean, people are saying that the 50-game suspension of baseball is a joke. And I think part of this has to do with the numbers of baseball are such a sacred part of the game. And football numbers, with the exception of the quarterback and running backs to a lesser degree, and I guess wideouts, the skill position. Otherwise, those numbers don't matter. And so when an offensive tackle or a linebacker or somebody's cheating the system, so what? They're not messing with the numbers. And the numbers in football aren't as important as the numbers in baseball. But a 4-game suspension is a joke. It's no deterrent whatsoever.
That's 25% of your season. That's like suspending a baseball player 40 games. I mean, it's the same. It's the equivalent.
But at 50, there's an outcry. At 50 and 100, there's an outcry that it's not enough. Nobody is complaining that that the 4 is not enough in football. So is that a little bit of, or are we just not care? Do we kind of like that?
I think there's definitely more of a tolerance in football than there is in other sports, including baseball. Look at how people have looked at Barry Bonds and guys like Roger Clemens, guys have been tainted by this stuff. No one screams in football players. I mean, they just get them back and it's forgotten.
Society doesn't care if football.
30.
Adam, great stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And of course, from New Orleans, Thursday.
10 seconds.
Our camp coverage brought to you by Sonic. At Goodson.